Hey guys, tonight we descend into Yomi, the shadowy realm of the dead in Japanese mythology. And to be very clear, you probably won't survive this. That's not just drama for the thumbnail. Yomi isn't some poetic afterlife with harp music and floaty robes. It's damp, it smells like rot, and if you eat even a single bite while you're there, yeah, you're stuck forever. Until you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Otherwise, keep your soul intact and scroll on. Also, let me know in the comments, what city are you in and what time is it right now? I love seeing how far this sleepy little cult of mythology fans has spread. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive in a quiet forest in western Japan. It's late, probably close to midnight, and the crickets have mostly gone silent. A soft mist drips from the trees like breath in the cold air. You should have turned back an hour ago, but something about the path, narrow and crumbling, kept pulling you forward. The flashlight on your phone is the only thing keeping your feet steady. There's moss underfoot, slick stone on either side, and an ancient scent in the air. Salt, iron, and damp earth. Ahead, a small shrine waits, half swallowed by the vines and shadows. You're not the first person to come here, but you might be the last. According to legend, this is the entrance to Yomotsu Hirasaka, the slope of Yomi, the mythical borderland between the living and the dead. The Japanese underworld isn't a lake of fire or a screaming pit, it's more subtle, more final. It begins like this, quiet, even kind of peaceful, until it closes around you like a cold, wet blanket. In Shinto belief, death isn't evil. It's just impure, tainted. It doesn't scream or gnash its teeth, it clings. Like smoke in your clothes after a bonfire, or a cold that won't go away. As you step closer to the shrine, your skin begins to prickle. The air thickens. The ground beneath your shoes shifts subtly, more like soil than stone, soft and decaying. Something in your chest tells you, you shouldn't be here. And yet, here you are. A narrow archway looms ahead. No bright gate or golden passage, just stone pillars cracked and sunken. Vines strangle one of them, curling like skeletal fingers. You step through, and the world behind you drops away. There's no loud whoosh or magical flash. Just silence. No bugs, no birds, no wind. Not even your own footsteps make a sound anymore. You shine your light behind you, but the path is gone. What was a forest moments ago is now just black. You've entered the threshold of Yomi. This is where the myths say Izanagi once stood, grieving, heart cracked in half, looking for his beloved Izanami. She had died giving birth to the fire god, and his love for her burned so bright he refused to let go. So he came here, just like you. Past the stones, past the dead air, into the place where no god or human should return from. As you move deeper, the landscape changes. The terrain slopes downward, not dramatically, just enough that your calves feel the pull. The trees twist at odd angles. They're still here, but wrong somehow. Thinner, greyer. Some bleed sap that smells vaguely of copper. Others have faces, not obvious ones, more like knots in the wood that seem to frown when you're not looking directly at them. The roots tug at your ankles. Your flashlight flickers. There's a low sound ahead. It might be wind, but it might also be breathing. The air is warmer now, and it shouldn't be. You're underground, or somewhere like it. The rules don't apply here. The atmosphere is heavy. You think you hear footsteps behind you, soft and quick. You turn, nothing. But that doesn't mean you're alone. A fun detail that doesn't make the tourist brochures. Some say that the mouth of Yomi moves. Like it breathes. It opens and closes at its own whim. And once you're inside, the entrance might not be where you left it. You could turn around and walk for hours, only to find yourself deeper in the maze, more entangled, like a fly in a web. Scholars have argued for decades about whether Yomi is a place or a state. Is it a literal realm beneath Japan's soil, or more of a spiritual dimension, layered over hours, invisible unless you know where to look? There's no consensus, and maybe that's the point. Eventually, the shrine path leads to a clearing. There's a pool of stagnant water in the centre, black as spilled ink. Surrounding it are half-submerged statues, small worn Jizo figures, protectors of souls. Most are decapitated, their heads resting on the ground like offering bowls. A whisper tickles your ear, but when you sit around, the voice is gone. You recognize nothing here, and that's the first real sign you're no longer part of the world you knew. The light overhead, if you can call it that, comes from nowhere and everywhere. It's a muted bluish haze, like twilight under water. You can see, but only just. The trees are denser now, they hum. Not with life, but with presence. Something is watching you. Many somethings, not hostile, just curious, like you're the strange one here. And to be fair, you are. You reach a gate. Not grand or ceremonial, just two crooked posts and a lintel. This, according to myth, is the true crossing point. Beyond this, no going back. Izanagi crossed this threshold once. When he realised what he'd done, it was already too late. Yomi had swallowed him whole, and what he saw on the other side haunted him forever. But that's a story for tomorrow, or more accurately, the next step down. You pause at the gate. The crooked wood leans just slightly, like it's tired of holding the threshold between two worlds. Your breath is shallow now, even though you're not exerting yourself. The air has shifted again, thicker, wetter, a little sweet in a way that makes your stomach clench. Something in your body knows before your mind does. You're not just in Yomi now, you've crossed into its memory. You step forward. The forest doesn't stop exactly, but it fades. Trees blur into pillars of stone, each one slick with moss and carved with kanji too old to read. The ground is flat here, impossibly smooth like polished clay or ancient ceramic. You walk slowly, each step echoing louder than the last. There are walls now, natural at first, then structured. Something built this, or someone. The temperature drops, and the air grows metallic. This is where the story of death begins. In Shinto mythology, there was no death at first, no rot, no decay, no slow crumbling of bones. Life flowed easily between the realms, just like rivers meet the sea. But then came her, Izanami, the Divine Mother. You've heard her name already, but now you start to understand what she became. Long ago, she and her husband, Izanagi, created the islands of Japan by dipping a jeweled spear into the ocean and stirring it like a divine ladle. Land dripped from the point, forming the archipelago. They filled it with gods, forests, volcanoes, and people. They created life the way an artist paints, freely, joyfully, without regret. Until Izanami gave birth to the fire god, and the flame consumed her. Her death wasn't just a loss, it was a cosmic rip. Izanagi, shattered by grief, couldn't accept it. So he came here, to Yomi, to find her. You picture him standing where you are now, wrapped in the divine armour, holding a torch fashioned from the bark and hope. He believed he could bring her back, but she had already eaten the food of Yomi. That's the rule. Once you eat, you belong. It's a concept echoed in other cultures, Persephone's pomegranate seeds, for example. But here it's especially cruel. Izanami hadn't intended to stay. She thought she could leave. She even promised to speak to the gods of Yomi on Izanagi's behalf. So he waited and waited, days, maybe longer, in the darkness, listening to the distant murmurs of the dead. Finally, his patience shattered. He lit his torch and descended deeper. You do the same, not with a flame, but with your faint flashlight, which now stutters weakly. The walls around you begin to close in, forming a long corridor. Water drips somewhere ahead. The air smells like old bones and something medicinal, like a forgotten hospital. Izanagi reached the inner chambers. What he found wasn't his beautiful wife, not anymore. Her body had begun to decay. Her flesh sagged and moved with worms. Her mouth had split into 7 mouths, each whispering regrets. 8 thunder gods clung to her like tumours, guardians of her corruption. Her eyes had sunk in and glowed. She turned to him, angry, not at him exactly, but at reality. That she had been bound here, that he had seen. Her shame was cosmic. You walk faster now, trying not to picture her, but of course you do. According to the myth, Izanagi fled. He ran, dropping charms behind him to slow her down. She chased him, screaming, and with her came a tide of death. Thunder, rot, night. He blocked her pursuit by rolling a massive boulder into the entrance of Yomi, sealing it shut. That rock is said to still sit at the border, the exact spot you passed through. Congratulations, you stepped over the world's most cursed doorstop. The moment he sealed her in, she cursed him. From that point on, Izanagi would create 1,000 lives each day, but she would claim 1,000 deaths. Thus, the cycle began, life and death. A cosmic balance struck not with ceremony, but with heartbreak and horror. This foundational myth isn't just a story, it's a scar. It explains why death is treated so carefully in Japanese culture. Why certain things, like blood and decay, are considered unclean. Why there's so much ritual around death, purification and memory. Even today, homes near cemeteries cost less. Funerals are meticulously formal. Death still whispers with Izanami's breath. As you walk deeper, you notice something odd. The corridor you're in widens again into a round chamber. Stone, domed, echoing. The walls are covered in carved panels. Not decorative, narrative. Like storyboards. You move your light across them slowly, here. You see Izanami in her divine form, smiling, pregnant with gods. Then you see her lying still, flames curling around her. Then, her corpse twisted and monstrous, crowned in shadow. The images are disturbing, but strangely sad. She wasn't evil, just lost. One quirky thing not everyone knows. In some fringe versions of the tale, Izanami doesn't just stay in Yomi. She becomes it. Like a divine nervous system, she fuses with the realm itself. Every corner, every echo, every sob you hear in the dark is a whisper of her consciousness. She watches everyone who enters, not with malice, but with the longing, and maybe a little bitterness. Because she was the mother of gods, and now she's just here. You sit for a moment in the centre of the room. There's a depression in the floor, an old basin filled with cloudy water. You lean over it, and for a second your reflection flickers. Not just yours, something behind your face, a shadow, gone before your mind can process it. Scholars still debate how literal Yomi was meant to be. Some say it's a metaphor for decomposition, the journey of a body returning to the earth. Others argue it was a real underground chamber in ancient burial mounds, inspired by the smell of corpses in the tomb air. Maybe both are true, maybe neither. Myth, after all, doesn't need to be fact, it just needs to feel true. You stand and continue. The corridor narrows again, curving like a spiral seashell. Something pulses in the distance, low, rhythmic. Not dangerous, just constant. Like a heartbeat, echoing through stone. You're being called forward. You move slowly now, not from fear, but because everything around you seems to want slowness. The air has a thickness to it, like you're walking underwater, or through molasses laced with memory. The tunnel has narrowed into something more like a throat, ribbed with stone and weeping water from above. It's hard to tell if you're going deeper, or if the world itself is reshaping around you. This is the path Izanagi took, remember. But unlike you, he carried a purpose. He wanted his wife back. He wanted to unmake death. You're just a visitor. A tourist in a realm that doesn't care whether you understand its customs. You're not in danger yet, but Yomi has a way of turning your intentions inside out. Eventually the passage widens again, and the floor becomes a gentle slope descending into shadow. Your flashlight sputters but doesn't die. Ahead a faint greenish glow flickers. Bioluminescent moss clings to the walls now, casting long shadows that sway even though nothing moves. You step into a massive cavern, and this is where the story turns. You're standing in a vast hollowed-out chamber. The ceiling is high enough to disappear into black. The floor is slick with condensation. And rising in the centre, like a skeletal version of a palace, is an enormous gate. Unlike the crude wooden post you crossed earlier, this one is ceremonial, almost regal, twisting spires of bone and petrified wood interlaced with dark vines. It hums faintly, a pitch you feel in your teeth more than your ears. This, according to myth, is where Izanagi begged his wife to return. He stood outside this gate, whispering her name, calling her softly at first, then louder, then screaming, and she answered. Her voice came through the cracks in the stone, not harsh, not even angry, just distant. She told him to wait. She said she would speak to the gods of Yomi and see if it were possible to leave, that she wanted to leave, that she missed him, so he waited. And you do too, for a moment. Not because you expect an answer, but because something in this space feels still, like the dead air before a thunderstorm. The glow around the gate pulses slightly. You're not supposed to enter. But you're also not supposed to just stand there forever. Izanagi waited for what could have been hours or centuries. Time is slippery here. Then, like an impatient child, he broke the rule. He stepped beyond the gate, torch in hand, into the sacred halls of Yomi. And now, so do you. The chamber behind the gate is low, close, suffocating. The ceiling dips, the walls curve, your breath fogs. You pass through narrow passageways filled with bones, stacked neatly like an ossuary. But they were not human bones. Too long, too many joints, too sharp. Some look like wings, others like enormous jawbones. The deeper you go, the more it smells like old paper and ashes. Then you see the room. It's not grand, not a throne room or a temple, it's simple. Stone floor, walls carved with flowing symbols, and in the centre, a figure. Still, enormous, reclining. It's her, Izanami. Well, what's left of her? In the myth, Izanagi's torch revealed a horror. His wife was no longer a woman, but something larger, less coherent. Her body had become a landscape, maggots fed on her. Her skin flaked like petals in winter. The gods of thunder clung to her organs like parasites. Her eyes leaked, but not tears. Just fluid, like melted wax. You can't see clearly, but you feel it. A presence. Something vast and broken and aware. She doesn't move, but you know she's watching you. Not with eyes, but with gravity, with sorrow. She has become the underworld. A goddess who gave life and now must contain all its endings. Her voice floats through the chamber, a whisper that's not made of words. You feel it in your ribs. Why did you look? Because he had to, because you had to. It's human, isn't it? To want to see what we shouldn't. To stare into the face of death and try to understand it, even when we're told not to. Especially then. The myth says Izanami screamed in rage and shame. She chased Izanagi through the halls of Yomi, furious that he saw her like this, that he exposed her. But what if that's not the whole story? Some versions of the myth say she wasn't angry, just devastated. Not at him, but at herself, for decaying, for changing, for becoming something other than what he loved. That's where the scholarly debate gets spicy. Was Izanami truly a vengeful spirit, or is that a later interpretation? Could she be read instead as a victim of divine biology, forced into rot by the very process of giving life? Some argue she represents the fear of female decay, a symbol used to warn men away from the mysteries of death and childbirth. Others say she's a tragic emblem of what happens when the sacred becomes profane. You're not here to decide that, but you are here to witness. The chamber begins to tremble lightly, not an earthquake, more like breath, a sigh from the realm itself. You take a step back, then another. The figure in the centre doesn't move, but you sense the mood has shifted. Your presence is no longer welcome. Time to leave. Just like Izanagi, you turn and run. The corridor blurs. The bones seem to move. Your flashlight cuts out completely, and now you're relying on memory and instinct. The path winds faster than before. The hum behind you grows louder. There's no screaming, just pressure, like a dream you can't wake up from. Finally, you burst through the bone gate and collapse on the cold stone floor of the outer chamber, panting, your heart hammering. The glow dims. Silence returns. You made it out of that room, but something followed you. You don't get up right away. You just lie there on the stone floor, catching your breath, watching the strange ceiling pulse with dim light. Your lungs ache. Your mouth tastes like copper and dust. Something clings to your skin, grit or maybe spores, maybe regret. Whatever followed you from that chamber doesn't show itself, but you feel it, hovering close, like static electricity or the way your ears ring after a loud noise. It's not touching you, yet. You finally sit up, and the silence is now oppressive. A silence so thick you can hear the blood rushing in your ears. You want to speak, maybe say something, anything, but your throat catches. The language here doesn't care for human words. It's not built for your voice. Somewhere ahead, a corridor opens. You follow it. The walls shift again. Gone are the carved stone and moss-covered murals. Now it's a tunnel of smooth clay, like it was dug by hands or claws. You notice grooves on the floor, faint, like drag marks. At first you think they're scratches or animal tracks, but then you see the outlines of fingers, lots of them, dragging themselves forward. That's when it hits you. This is the path of the dead. Not gods, not myths, no, not visitors. Actual souls, people who've died. Ordinary forgettable people stripped of their names and buried by time, the ones no one remembers. And in Yomi, that's the worst fate of all. In Japanese belief, the moment someone dies, their spirit enters a liminal phase. not alive, not fully dead, in that fragile space. If the proper rites aren't performed, funerals, prayers, ancestral offerings, the soul risks being left behind. And where do those neglected souls end up? Yep, right here. There's a stench now. Not rot exactly, but something stale, like a room that's been shut for too long. The tunnel opens again into a low, round chamber filled with what look like stone benches, slabs really. Some of them have figures seated on them. Pale shapes still, eyes closed. Souls. They don't notice you. Or maybe they do, and they just don't care. You creep past them, careful not to breathe too loudly. Each figure wears a faint expression, some in peace, some in confusion, and one or two with a kind of quiet horror frozen into their features. These aren't demons, they aren't monsters, they are just stuck, trapped in the afterlife equivalent of a waiting room that never calls your name. In one corner of the room is something that doesn't match the others. A small round table. On it, a bowl. You approach it without thinking, drawn in by some old reflex. Hunger, maybe. Habit. Inside the bowl is a single round fruit. Pale, glossy, too perfect. And this is where we circle back to the rule. The big one. The one Izanami broke. Do not eat anything in Yomi, you don't even reach out. But your fingers twitch. Here's the thing. In the mythology, the food of Yomi isn't poisonous. It's not laced with death or filled with evil. It's simply binding. To consume anything from this realm is to enter into a contract. The realm feeds you, and in return you belong to it. You can't just snack and leave. Yomi is not a fast food stop, it's a forever buffet with no exit. This idea shows up in a few Japanese folktales, often where someone dies, wanders into the afterlife and is tempted by an old friend or a long-lost relative offering food. Sometimes it's rice, sometimes soup, sometimes eerily, it's a favourite dish from childhood. The person eats, and then the world tilts. The colours fade, and they realise, too late, that they're not going home. You leave the fruit, barely. Further ahead, the corridor darkens, and your light flickers again. But now it's reacting to something else. There's a glow ahead, dim and bluish. You move toward it and find yourself at the edge of an enormous chasm. A river. It flows silently, black and glassy. No ripples, no wind. Just an endless stretch of water that doesn't reflect anything. Not the cavern, not you, just darkness. Welcome to the Sanzu no Kawa, the river of three crossings. This is where the souls are judged. According to Buddhist-influenced Japanese belief, everyone who dies must cross this river. But the way they cross it depends on their actions in life. Good person, you get a bridge, somewhere in the middle, you'll be wading. Terrible human being, enjoy swimming through a current filled with thorns, leeches, and spiritual humiliation. And here's a juicy debate. The three paths might also represent different spiritual disciplines: conduct, concentration, and wisdom. That means your crossing reflects not just your moral behaviour, but your entire mental and spiritual balance. The river becomes a mirror, not of your body, but of your state. There's no one here to guide you, no ferryman like in Greek mythology, no ticket booth, but there is something watching. On the far side of the river you see a silhouette, tall, still, and perfectly centred. It holds a scroll in one hand and a staff in the other. Enma-o is waiting. You're not supposed to meet him yet, that comes later, but you get a glimpse. His face is hidden, but the energy is overwhelming. Ancient, not angry, just absolute, like gravity, or the end of a sentence. There's a stone path leading out into the river, only a few steps long. Beyond that, nothing. The rest of your crossing, if you had to make it, would depend entirely on the life you lived. And honestly, you're not sure how you'd fare. You back away slowly. You're not dead, not really, not yet. You have no business trying to cross the Sanzu. Still, as you turn, something whispers. It's not a voice, not in the traditional sense, more like a memory you didn't know you had, brushing against your mind, a warning or maybe a welcome. It's impossible to say, but you know this now. Yomi has rules. You have learned two already. Don't look, don't eat, and soon you'll learn the third. You walk away from the river with that whisper still curling around your mind like smoke. It doesn't follow you exactly. It's more like it lingers in your spine, just enough to keep you uncomfortable. The figure of Enma-o fades behind you, absorbed by the fog. You never saw his face, but you feel judged anyway, like a silent grade has been carved into your soul. The corridor that greets you next is different, more geometric. You've left the cave-like organic spaces behind and entered something closer to architecture. The walls are made of stone blocks, impossibly uniform. There's no moss, no drips of water, no signs of life, just long, sharp corners and echoing footsteps. Your own footsteps. Nothing else moves. You've reached the edge of what Izanagi once saw, the final barrier, the place where life ends and undeath begins. And now it's your turn to play a part in one of the earliest, most defining moments in all Japanese myth, because this is where the door was sealed. According to the old stories, Izanagi made it almost all the way out. After seeing his wife in her decayed divine horror, he ran. Through the hallways of Yomi, through screaming shadows, past vomiting walls and shrieking gods of rot. Izanami chased him, no longer pleading but furious. Maybe it was shame. Maybe betrayal. Maybe she simply wanted him to see her as she was and stay, but he didn't. And as he reached the mouth of Yomi, the entrance where you first stepped in, the place now behind you, he rolled a boulder into place. Not just any boulder, a divine one. It's said to be too massive for any mortal to move. It sealed the gap between the worlds and trapped Izanami forever on the other side. You walk toward it now. The air grows hot, then cold, then hot again. Unstable. The closer you get to the boulder, the more the tunnel seems to warp. The walls ripple subtly, as if resisting your presence. The light dims. There's no torch in your hand, but something inside you glows faintly. Some memory of warmth. You press forward. Finally, you reach it. The stone isn't just big, it's impossibly big. Tall as a building, wide as a street, and yet it sits snugly in this narrow corridor like it was dropped in by divine crane. Its surface isn't smooth. It's jagged, dark, flecked with mineral veins that sparkle faintly in the dimness. It hums, not like a machine, like a lung. This is the Chibiki no Ewa, the Rock of 1,000 Pulls. It's said the spirits of the dead still grab at it from the other side, trying to move it even a millimetre, desperate for a way back. You step close, and the stone feels alive beneath your palm, pulsing faintly, like the memory of a heartbeat. There's warmth on the surface, then chill, then warmth again. You can't hear the screams, but you feel them. Screams that stretch across centuries. It's here that Izanagi delivered the final blow to his relationship. He didn't just seal the gate. He spoke through the stone. His final words to Izanami, "I will create 1,000 lives every day." And from the other side, her reply hissed through the cut cracks. "Then I will take 1,000 deaths." Boom. The origin of mortality. Not a punishment from heaven, not the wrath of some petty god, but a failed love story, a cosmic divorce. Two once immortal beings locking each other out forever, creating the cycle we now call life and death. Here's the weird twist not everyone knows. That massive stone is not just a wall, it's a symbol. Some Shinto scholars argue it represents a womb, an entry and exit point. The feminine divine reduced to one final unmovable shape. Others say it's a metaphor for forgetfulness. Once you pass through Yomi and see what's on the other side, the living world becomes less real. The stone keeps the dead from confusing memories with reality. You don't touch it again. Once is enough. The passage turns sharply, and now the world is different again. Quieter, less angry. You're beyond the stone now, into the zone where nothing can return, but plenty still lingers. This part of Yomi is colder, more solemn. It feels like a mausoleum stretching endlessly in all directions. Stone shelves line the walls. Some hold urns, others bones wrapped in ancient fabrics. Occasionally you pass shrines, small cracked altars bearing offerings so old they've calcified. A rice ball turned to stone, coins rusted into one another, a doll missing its eyes, and then you see them. Shadows. They flicker at the edges of your vision, just out of reach. Not spirits exactly, more like impressions, ghosts of ghosts, residual emotions carved into the fabric of Yomi itself. You don't hear them, but your thoughts start to blur. Memories that aren't yours. Regrets that don't belong to you. A letter never sent. A child never met. A final word that was never spoken. This is the realm of the stuck, the ones who died with things undone. The ones whose funerals were rushed or incomplete. Whose names were forgotten. The kind who haunt train stations, empty tunnels, or old trees in rural Japan. One fringe belief says that these spirits, if left unattended long enough, begin to fade into the walls of Yomi, not erased, just absorbed. Like old paint under new coats. That's why Japanese traditions place so much importance on remembering the dead, calling out their names, lighting incense, keeping family altars. Because forgetting is a kind of second death. And in Yomi, second death is final. You pass a shelf with something etched into it, a name. You can't read the kanji, but your fingers trace the grooves instinctively. For a brief moment you swear the room warms. Just a little, like your touch meant something, like it mattered. Maybe that's the third rule. Don't forget. You walk on not because you want to, but because something in the silence tells you to keep going. Yomi isn't done with you yet. The corridor narrows again, curling gently like the inside of a seashell. The air is thinner now, dry and chalky, like you're walking through the lungs of something ancient. Your footsteps don't echo anymore, they get swallowed whole by the silence. Each step forward feels like a small betrayal of everything that came before. You glance back just once, and for the first time, there's nothing behind you. No corridor, no stone, no past. Yomi is a one-way story. Eventually, you reach a bend in the path that opens into a cavern, wide, dark, pulsing with low, vibrating silence. Across the way stretches a massive river, wider than the Sanzu no Kawa, or maybe just more final. The water here is still and black and seems to curve downward into a hole so deep your eyes refuse to track it. You're not alone here. You feel them before you see them. Souls. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. They're all standing along the banks, unmoving. Their shapes flicker slightly, like they're struggling to hold their own outlines. You get the sense that they've been waiting for a long time, maybe longer than time allows. A few glance at you, not with interest, but with the dull glaze of people who've forgotten what it means to care. Not lost, not frightened, just resigned. A small figure appears beside you. No footsteps, no sound. Just there, like fog suddenly taking shape. It's a woman, or something woman-shaped, draped in layered white cloth, her hair hanging like black ink down her back. Her face is hidden behind a wooden mask, smooth and blank, except for two tiny slits where the eyes should be. She doesn't speak, she just raises one arm and gestures toward the river. Here it is, the crossing, but not the one you think. This is where the dead are sorted. The woman drifts ahead, and you follow, because what else would you do? She leads you to a raised platform, where an old warped bridge juts out over the river. The boards creak under your weight, though she makes no sound at all. At the end of the bridge sits a strange structure, something like a toll gate, a stone arch carved with spirals and kanji you can't begin to translate. And sitting beneath it is a man, or something once shaped like a man. He's small, robed in layers of red and gold that have decayed into browns and greys. His skin is greyish-blue, papery, stretched too tight across his bones. His eyes are sunken but alive, sharp, calculating. He's writing something with a thin, bone-handled brush, dipping it into ink that looks an awful lot like blood. Scrolls lie in rolls around him, some long, some short, some covered in thick seals. This is your first real encounter with the spiritual bureaucracy of Yomi. Yes, bureaucracy. Because in Japanese Buddhist cosmology, death isn't just a journey, it's a process. A sorting system. A kind of celestial DMV, if the DMV had demons, giant ledgers, and punishments for forgetting your own name. The figure before you is a Shinigami clerk, a minor deity of death, assigned to track your karmic history. He doesn't acknowledge you at first. Just keeps writing one symbol at a time. Eventually he reaches the end of the scroll, sighs without sound, and looks up. Oh, his eyes are impossibly old. He waves you forward with one long ink-stained finger. You approach. He unrolls a different scroll and begins listing things. You don't hear them as words exactly, more like feelings, embarrassments, lies, kindnesses you forgot you even did. That time you helped someone without expecting anything. That time you did something terrible and blamed someone else. It's all there. All of it. This is the cosmic accounting. There's a belief in Japanese Buddhist-influenced traditions that every action in your life is recorded by 10 kings of the afterlife, each judging you in stages, over the course of 49 days after death. Enma-O is the big boss, but the others handle your file first. This figure here, he's one of the minor assessors, a first-level administrator of your fate. He doesn't judge, he records, and beside him, standing silently, are a pair of figures, Oni. You finally see them now, not red and cartoonish, them on like the festival masks. These ones are tall, muscled, with mottled skin like bruised peaches and horned heads that graze the top of the cavern. One holds a mallet, the other a kind of long needle. Neither moves, neither blinks. These are the fiscal demons, the auditors. Their job is to escort you to whichever accounting department you've earned. You glance down at the scroll again, and something catches your eye. A word, your name, written in the ancient characters, right there, and below it, blank space. A long stretch of empty parchment, because you're not dead, not yet. This clerk isn't processing you, he's just curious. You're an anomaly. A living mole wandering through the death bureaucracy. It's like someone walking into an airport without a ticket and trying to board a plane. Confusing, alarming, maybe even dangerous. He makes a single mark on your scroll, just one, and then gestures you away. The woman in white reappears beside you, no movement, no sound, just there again. She lifts one hand and points, not behind you this time, but across the river, toward a set of stairs carved into the far wall, lit by torches that burn green and blue. This is your path now, but before you go, you look back, at the clerk still writing, at the souls still waiting, at the Oni shifting their weight for the first time. There's a quirky old story, probably fictional or at least deeply exaggerated, that says some souls bribe their way past judgment, offer a favourite poem, a particularly good haiku, or a perfect bowl of udon. One elderly spirit is said to have avoided punishment for embezzlement by reciting a love confession so pure, Enma-O let him go with a warning and a chuckle. Unlikely, probably. But in Yomi, poetry has weight. You turn from the platform and follow the woman up the long staircase. Behind you, the bridge creaks, then collapses into the river with a sigh. The staircase winds sharply upward, cut into the very rock of Yomi like a spine running up the back of some forgotten titan. Each step is uneven, chipped at the edges, as though thousands of feet or claws or hooves have worn them down over time. The torches lining the walls flicker with blue and green flames, casting long shadows that curl around you like tendrils. You're not sure if they're real flames or just spiritual light, but they don't burn and they don't warm. They simply glow, cold, watchful and still. The woman in white floats ahead of you, never more than a few steps away. She never speaks. Her mask remains smooth and unreadable, but her presence somehow softens the dread in your chest. Not quite comforting, just less crushing, like she's a buffer between you and whatever's coming next. At the top of the stairs, you step into a massive chamber, its roof so high you can't see the end of it. The walls are carved with thousands, tens of thousands, of tiny script characters, each no larger than a fingernail. They crawl across the stone like insects, written in neat, perfect rows, vanishing into the darkness above. The entire room is alive with unspoken words, their meaning lost to time, or maybe never meant for human minds in the first place. At the centre of the chamber sits a throne. Not gold, not marble, not even stone, it's wood. Old, cracked, gnarled like driftwood, twisted by centuries of salt and pressure. And on it sits Enma-O. This time you see him clearly. He's massive, towering even while seated. His robes are red-black, embroidered with countless sigils that shift when you try to focus on them. His skin is deep blue-grey, lined with age, yet coiled with energy. His beard flows like smoke, thick and black, curling around his chest. His eyes, sharp and golden, lock onto you the moment you enter, and you feel it, that ancient brutal awareness. Like a spotlight shining on your soul, he doesn't move, doesn't need to. Just existing in his presence is enough to freeze every part of you that thought it could pretend. You can't lie to him, can't posture or deflect. He sees everything, every version of you. The time you were cruel and liked it. The time you wanted to help and didn't. The time you tried. So yeah, if your knees feel weak right now, same. Enma-O is the great king of hell in Japanese Buddhist cosmology. He's modelled after Yama from Indian tradition, but has evolved into his own thing. In some stories, he's a god. In others, a former human elevated by karmic promotion. But across every version, he is the judge. He decides where souls go next. Rebirth, torture, cleansing, or something else entirely. You expected fire, screams, the usual hell stuff. But his courtroom is quiet. No screaming, no boiling pits, just silence and wait. That might be worse. He lifts one hand, slow, deliberate, and a scroll appears in the air beside him. Not a fresh scroll, an ancient one, cracking at the edges. It hovers there, then unrolls slowly, revealing your name again. But this time there's more writing beneath it. A lot more. The scroll shimmers, and for a split second, your memories flood out of it. Not in chronological order, not neatly filed, they just pour. That time you were 7 and stole something. That awful breakup. The night you stared at the ceiling for hours and wondered if any of it was worth it. The good stuff too. The nights you laughed until your stomach hurt. The person you forgave who didn't deserve it. The kindness no one saw. Enma O watches it all. He doesn't flinch. And then, finally, he speaks. His voice is like boulders grinding underwater. Deep, slow, oddly melodic. He doesn't ask questions. He states. Describes you. Not your actions, but your patterns. The shape your soul has taken. The slope of your heart. He doesn't say if it's good or bad. Just true. And then he pauses, looks straight at you. Why are you here? He asks. You open your mouth, and you honestly don't know. It's not a threat, it's not a test. It's a genuine curiosity. You're not dead, you don't belong in Yomi, and yet you're here, wandering corridors of judgment like a stray cat in a courtroom. You try to answer, but the words don't form. He already knows. Maybe he just wanted to see if you did. He waves his hand again. The scroll rolls itself up and vanishes. A faint ripple passes through the chamber, like time holding its breath, and then he smiles, not kindly, not cruelly, just knowingly, as if to say, you've got a long way to go. He speaks again, and this time his voice carries weight that ripples through the room. Let them show you. You blink, and when your eyes open, the throne is empty. No king, no scroll, no courtroom, just you standing in a chamber that now looks very different. The walls have crumbled, the glowing scripts have faded, the torches are out, and your guide, gone. In her place stands a new figure, not masked, not faceless. This one looks just like you, but not exactly. A little older maybe, a little more tired, a version of you that's seen more endings than you have. This is the part of Yomi no one talks about in polite company. The part where your reflection gets up and starts making decisions, because now it's time to walk through the punishments. Not yours, not yet, but the ones waiting for everyone else. There's a reason Yomi has no one-size-fits-all hell. The Japanese underworld, deeply influenced by Buddhist notions of karma, believes in tailored justice. What you suffer is what you need to understand, and understanding in theory leads to purification. So, time to tour the custom-built nightmares. And your guide? Your own worst self. This should be fun. Your reflection watches you with eyes you've never seen on your own face. Clear, still, merciless. No malice, no pity. Just absolute recognition. It tilts its head slightly as if sizing you up, then turns and walks down a corridor that hadn't been there before. You hesitate for a second, because following your own shadow deeper into the underworld should be a hard no. But then again, you're already too deep for logic, so you follow. The walls close in again, narrow and tall, made of polished black stone that reflects just enough to make you uneasy. Every few steps, you catch flickers of movement, not from your guide, not from yourself, but from the walls, like memories trapped in the mirror sheen of the rock. People screaming, falling, laughing, dying. All of it played silently, with no explanation. They don't feel like strangers, that's the worst part. They feel like versions of you that never made it past a moment. Eventually, the corridor opens into a cavern, wide and hot, pulsing with a soft red glow like coals under ash. This is your first taste of what many would call actual hell. But again, forget the fire and brimstone western stuff. This is personal, strange, structured. Before you, a massive stone wheel turns slowly, agonizingly, dragged by a line of figures bent under its weight. Souls, stripped of shape and dignity, tied to the spokes by ropes of their own past mistakes. As the wheel turns, their bodies are stretched, pressed, and snapped back, over and over. No screams, just eyes that have gone far past suffering into something worse, understanding. Your guide, still wearing your mask but somehow older with every step, gestures without speaking. This is the wheel of regret. The words land in your mind rather than your ears. This punishment is for those who acted too late, who held back the truth. Who knew what to do and chose comfort over courage? For each moment missed, the wheel turns again. Every rotation brings the memory back sharper than before until the soul finally admits it cannot be undone, and just like that you feel it. One of your own regrets, bubbling up like acid. The time you could have said something and didn't. You watch the wheel, and for a horrible second, you see yourself on it, tied to the outer ring, silent, eyes wide with that specific kind of pain that only comes from guilt that never rotted properly. You turn away, but the air thickens, and your guide walks on. The next chamber is colder, sharp, brittle, metallic. The walls are lined with paper screens, each one stretched taut and white, lit from behind by a flickering grey glow. Shadows flit across them, spindly hands, long needles, twitching shapes that never quite resolve. This is the hell of the paper skin. Here, souls are wrapped in thin, translucent layers of paper. Each one bears the names of the people they deceived, one character at a time. And the demons of this level, Oni with long, tapered claws like calligraphy brushes, gently, methodically poke holes through the names, one by one, over and over. Each poke burns, not physically, but in the mind. Like shame stapled to the inside of your eyelids. Liars, your guide says, again, directly into your thoughts. Not the flashy kind, the slow ones, the half-truthers, the ones who withheld honesty because it was inconvenient. You remember a few lies of your own. White ones, mostly, right? You move on. Next is a corridor lined with mirrors, hundreds of them, different sizes and frames, each perfectly polished. As you pass, they light up one by one, and show you, not yourself exactly, they show you what people thought of you, not what they told you, what they actually thought. Some faces you recognize, some you don't. A few hurt more than you expect. This isn't a punishment level, not really. More like a hallway between torments, a reflection checkpoint. The kind that reminds you Yomi isn't just pain for punishment's sake. It's not sadistic. It's designed for clarity. Beneath the horror is a theory. To truly move on, you have to see yourself honestly. You hate that. The final chamber of this set is dim and wide, filled with giant scrolls suspended from the ceiling by golden threads. Each one unfurls slowly, revealing massive paintings of lives wasted. Not evil lives, just pointless ones. Souls who did nothing, said nothing. Let time pass and called it fate. Here, those spirits kneel on the ground, heads bowed, watching scenes of their lives over and over. Not in torment, just in numb, suffocating silence. They weep sometimes, but mostly they just stare. Your guide speaks again. This is the purgatory of apathy. And somehow this one's the worst so far. You think about all the days you sat and did nothing. Not because you were tired or sick or overwhelmed, just because you didn't care enough. Because it was easier not to feel, easier not to try. You stare at the faces on the scrolls and wonder how close you are to joining them, how close anyone is. How much of hell is just letting the clock run out? Your guide turns, and this time you notice something you hadn't before. Their feet don't touch the ground anymore. They're gliding. The older they become, the more distant they are from you. Not just in age, but in humanity. Like watching your soul become what it was always afraid of becoming. Cold, numb, tired of the fight, they lead you down a narrower corridor now, darker than the others. The air buzzes faintly, and you feel something crawling not on your skin, but beneath it. The stone floor is sticky, wet. As you walk, you hear something new, laughter. Not joyous, not cruel, just wrong. And when you finally reach the end of the corridor, you find yourself in a chamber made of pure red clay. The walls are soft and sagging, pulsing slightly like lungs. In the centre is a small well, bubbling with thick black mud. Around it sit figures, shoulders shaking, heads thrown back, laughing so hard it looks painful. Some are missing teeth, others have mouths stretched open too wide. This, your guide says, is the pit of self-satisfaction. Every soul here is convinced they were right, that they never did anything wrong, that everyone else was the problem, and here they laugh forever, at themselves, at others, at nothing, because that's all they have left. You watch for a while, you laugh once, quietly, just to check, but it catches in your throat and doesn't come back out. Your guide, now almost unrecognisable, turns to you with hollow eyes. This is just the surface, they say, and then they vanish, leaving you alone with the pit, and a choice. Forward, always forward. You don't stay near the pit of self-satisfaction for long, the laughter still rising and falling behind you in grotesque waves, grates at something deep in your mind, aside, like nails on the inside of your skull. It's not just the sound, but the certainty in it. The awful conviction that no matter what those souls did in life, they'll never admit they were wrong, never reflect, never grow, just laugh louder and louder, until even their own names become a joke. You back away slowly, then turn and continue down the passage that opens ahead, its walls curved and low, almost intestinal. There's no guide now, no torchlight, just a thin strip of phosphorescence along the floor, like something spilled and never cleaned up. It glows faintly blue, pulsing every few seconds like a lazy heartbeat. You follow it, not because it feels safe, but because Yomi doesn't give you a better option. The smell here is sharper, less rot, more ozone and sulfur. Something's burning, or was recently. You walk for what feels like hours, then you reach a door. Not grand, not mystical, just a small sliding panel of rotted wood, the kind you'd see on a storage shed in the countryside. It shouldn't be here. It feels wrongly ordinary, but it's waiting, slightly ajar, with darkness spilling out like smoke. You slide it open the rest of the way and step into a room so cold your teeth ache instantly. You're in what looks like a classroom. No, not quite. It's almost a classroom. The layout's familiar. Desks, a blackboard, even a dusty window, but something's off. The proportions are wrong, the desks are slightly too narrow, the ceiling just a little too low. The blackboard is covered in scratch marks, not lessons. And sitting at each desk are figures hunched in silence, unmoving. No eyes, no mouths, just smooth masks where their faces should be, each one marked with a single character in red. Shame, failure, weak, burden, coward. Each desk is carved with those words again and again, as if each soul was made to etch them in by hand for centuries. A few figures are still carving, slowly, without looking up. This is a punishment you hadn't expected, the classroom of internalized judgment. Here, souls are trapped not by flames or blades, but by their own labels. Not what others gave them, what they accepted, what they repeated to themselves over and over until it became doctrine. The ones who weren't told they were worthless, but decided it on their own, and then believed it with religious devotion. A twisted form of punishment, not for bad deeds, but for how thoroughly someone erased themselves. You step around the desks carefully, avoiding eye contact even though there are no eyes to meet. The air is stale with old breath and dry ink. You can't help but read the carvings, not just the characters, but the shapes of them. Sloppy, shaky, rushed, desperate. You feel a pressure start to build behind your own eyes, like a tear that isn't yours trying to form anyway. You're about to leave when one of the heads turns, just slightly, toward you, and you see the character on its mask flicker for a moment. It says your name. You step back quickly, heart pounding, but no one else moves. The room is still again. Yomi doesn't just punish action, it punishes identity. You leave. The next corridor is darker still, more primitive. Carved directly into the rock, no attempt at architecture. You feel like an animal now, crawling through some ancient stomach of the earth. The path is slick, the walls sweat, the air tastes like iron. Ahead you hear a rhythmic gong sound, metal against stone repeated endlessly. As you emerge into a wide cavern lit by hanging lamps of animal bone, you see the source. Souls, hundreds of them, chained to enormous wheels and pulleys are working, digging, shoveling, turning great crankshafts made of petrified wood and screaming metal. This is Yomi's industry. Not punishment in the fiery, dramatic sense. No, this is the labour camp of karma. Here, the souls of the selfish, the greedy, and the idle are made to work. Not because it's torture, but because they never worked for anyone but themselves in life. And now they contribute to the infrastructure of the afterlife. They build bridges over rivers of judgment. They etch names into the walls of the forgotten. They mine the stone that gets used in shrines. It's eternal busy work, sure, but it has a function. One figure catches your attention, a thin man with trembling hands who seems to be painting kanji onto long strips of fabric. You watch as he writes the same phrase over and over. I thought I was more important than anyone else. He writes it fast, like he's done it 1,000,000 times. And when the paper's full, he feeds it into a slot in the wall where it burns with a hiss and vanishes. He never stops. This isn't agony. It's administration. And that's almost worse. There's no fire here, no demons poking you with pitchforks, Just endless, repetitive, soul-flattening work. The sound of tired motion, the unbroken cycle of enforced purpose. One of the workers collapses, and without a sound, they're dragged away by two eyeless figures in robes. Not punished, not scolded, just replaced. This, apparently, is what happens when you live only for yourself. You become a cog in someone else's world forever. You walk past the gears, the tools, the tired faces. A few souls glance at you, not out of recognition, just habit, like seeing another face is part of the shift. The tunnel narrows again as you exit the factory. The clinking fades behind you, and for a moment you almost miss the sound, because what's ahead is worse. The next room is empty, totally, just a long white void. No walls, no floor, no ceiling, and in the centre, a single figure, floating, curled into a fetal position, motionless. You recognise it instantly. It's you. Not metaphorical you, not symbolic. This is your exact face. Your exact body. Frozen mid-thought, mid-sob, mid-nothing. Suspended in a loop of unprocessed everything. This is the punishment of avoidance. This is what happens to souls who felt everything deeply and did nothing with it. Not the cruel, not the apathetic, but the overwhelmed. The ones who lived their lives too afraid to pick a direction, who avoided pain until pain became all they had left. This version of you has no wounds, no burns, no chains, but it's the most trapped you've ever seen a soul. You approach it slowly, heart thudding. It doesn't react. You whisper to it. Still nothing. Then after a moment, it begins to fade, like ash caught in a breeze, and when it's gone, the floor reappears beneath you, stone again, solid, and something new opens in front of you. A tunnel, narrow, lined with soft golden light. It feels different. Not hopeful exactly, but less cruel, like maybe, just maybe, you've seen enough of hell to begin understanding what it isn't. You step forward, because now you're being called somewhere else, and the worst may still be waiting. The golden tunnel is narrow, but not suffocating. It doesn't feel like the others, not like a throat or a trap or a memory that closes in the longer you stay inside it. It almost feels gentle, like the hallway in a dream right before you wake up, glowing softly, with the kind of light that doesn't cast shadows. You breathe a little easier here. Not quite peace, but a kind of truce. For the first time since stepping into Yomi, the weight in your chest lets up, just a fraction. You keep moving. You expect the warmth to grow, to lead you somewhere kinder, but the tunnel ends abruptly at a heavy wooden gate. It's weathered, ancient, held together by rusted iron bands and adorned with talismans, slips of paper bearing calligraphy so old it might be more pictogram than language. Some are fresh, some are barely clinging. They flap in a wind that doesn't exist. Your hand reaches for the gate almost on its own, and the moment your fingers brush the wood, it swings open without a sound. What lies beyond is chaos, but not the loud fire and brimstone kind. This chaos is bureaucratic. You've stepped into what looks like an office complex from another timeline. Rows of desks stretch into infinity, each one manned by scribes, some human-looking, some distinctly not. One has too many arms and the has no eyes, but appears to be reading from a scroll written in fire. Yet another scribbles on a parchment that disappears as soon as the ink dries. You blink and realise this is where the paperwork of the dead is processed. Welcome to the administrative sector of Yomi. It shouldn't surprise you. Japan has always had a reverence for order, even in the afterlife. Systems, forms, hierarchies, even here, maybe especially here, everything must be documented. You weave through the rows of desks, trying not to interrupt, but few clerks glance up at you. One nods politely, another snorts. A third pauses their writing just long enough to whisper something you can't hear but somehow understand. You're not supposed to be here. That's been the theme, hasn't it? A central desk, massive and circular, rises at the heart of the chamber. Behind it, shelves tower upward, stacked with scrolls, ledgers, and thin wooden tablets bound with red string. The woman at this desk looks human, completely human, but her eyes are too calm, too old. She doesn't react when you approach, she just reaches for a tablet and begins flipping through it, as if you're a regular appointment. "Living soul," she murmurs, voice low and smooth. "No date, no cause, no rights, curious." You open your mouth to speak, but she silences you with the smallest raise of her eyebrow. "You've seen too much," she continues, almost annoyed. But you have also not seen enough. She slides the tablet across the desk toward you. It's blank on one side, inscribed on the other. You can't read it, but you feel it. Your life, written in quiet, brutal shorthand. She taps the bottom of the tablet, and it bursts into the blue flame, curling into ash without smoke. Follow the left corridor, she says. You need to see what happens to those who didn't die, but should have. You hesitate. She doesn't look up again. You take the corridor. This part of Yomi is colder again, but clean. The stone is pale, almost white, and the air has a strange sterility to it, like an unused hospital wing. The walls are lined with tall niches, and inside each one is a small wooden box sealed with rope and paper talismans. The boxes aren't locked. They are contained. You pause at one. There's something whispering inside, not words, just vibrations, a pressure on your ears. The plaque beneath it reads, "The soul of the unacknowledged." And then you realise what this hall is. This is the archive of the unmourned, not the evil, not the selfish, just forgotten. People who died alone, people no one came to identify, homeless, estranged, those who drifted through the world unnoticed, unremembered. Their souls weren't judged, they weren't sent into the cleansing fires or the grinding wheels or the apologetic factories. They were just shelved, stored like misplaced paperwork. Some boxes vibrate more than others, some rattle, some are completely still. One of them has a crack down the side and a thin trickle of dark water drips onto the floor. You keep walking. Eventually the corridor opens into a circular space, and in the centre is something truly bizarre, a stone basin filled with ink. Thick and black and swirling on its own. Above it hangs a brush the size of a tree trunk suspended by the golden cords. You're not alone in this room. Figures stand around the basin, heads bowed. They each step forward, one at a time, dip the brush, and write something in the air. A single character, each glowing faintly before dissolving into mist. Some write forgive, others remember. One soul writes try. This is Yomi's quietest mercy, the basin of final words. These are souls that were too conflicted to pass judgment on themselves. They left life with unfinished sentences, open wounds, or too much confusion to face their own reckoning. So they are given one chance to write their last word, not for someone else, for themselves. Your hands twitch. You want to write something. You step toward the basin, but the golden cords tighten. The brush lifts just out of reach. You're not allowed. Not yet. Behind you the corridor shifts, opens into something new. You follow it. Now the walls are covered in murals, so finely painted they look like moving water. Each one tells a stew. Lives and deaths, joys and betrayals. Entire human timelines compressed into single gestures. A mother holding her child. A soldier falling backward into a shallow grave. An old woman lighting incense alone. A businessman dropping to his knees on a subway platform. Each story ends the same. A shadow behind them. All was waiting. One mural in particular catches your eye. It shows someone stepping into Yomi. Alone. Alive. They look familiar. They look like you. You reach out and the mural ripples. Suddenly, you're somewhere else. You're outside, trees, wind, the smell of wet earth. You're standing at the original entrance, the one you came through. Yomotsu Hirasaka, the slope, but you're not allowed to leave. A voice whispers beside you, gentle but heavy. You've seen how judgment works. Now see what happens when no judgment comes at all. And just like that, the trees disappear again. You're not going home, not yet. Yomi has another lesson in mind. The ground beneath your feet dissolves again, not dramatically, not with a plunge or a scream. It simply ceases to exist and you're falling. Not quickly, not dangerously, more like drifting downward through water that grows darker with each breath. Your arms move to brace yourself out of instinct, but there's nothing to grab. Just a slow descent into a heavier, older layer of Yomi. You can't see anything now. No torches, no walls, no corridors. Only the thick presence of something waiting below you. And then your feet touch down. You're standing on something solid again, bare, cold and deeply wrong. The air down here has weight. It wraps around you like a wet blanket that smells like blood, paper and something sharp. Not metallic, not biological, something psychic. You're in a deeper tier now, closer to the core of the Japanese hell realms. This is where things stop being metaphor. This is where punishment becomes bespoke. In front of you, the darkness begins to lift, peeling away like smoke rising from a fire that hasn't gone out in centuries. You're in a circular chamber, dimly lit by hanging lamps that glow faint red. Beneath each one sits a figure, tied, bound, folded into unnatural shapes. Their eyes are covered, their mouths sewn shut, their hands gripped in frozen fists. They don't move. They're not supposed to. You've reached the hell of unrelenting precision. This level isn't about fire or brute force, it's about detail. Specifically, the details that matter most when they're ignored. These souls weren't violent or cruel in an obvious way. They simply made decisions that cost others dearly while convincing themselves they did nothing wrong. The kind of people who followed orders, the ones who just signed the paperwork, the ones who didn't know and didn't ask. Here, their punishment is exact. Their minds replay every action they ever took that led to suffering. Not the action itself, but the ripples. The way their signature got someone fired, the way their silence let an abuser walk free, the way their polite neutrality became a weapon sharper than a sword. And as they sit bound and blindfolded, they feel every consequence, one at a time. Every meal skipped by a family they helped evict. Every night of loneliness they created by a single self-serving decision. Not in the body, in the conscience. It doesn't burn, it burdens. You walk between them, the air buzzing with invisible tension. No screaming here, just a static silence that feels like it's about to crack. And the longer you stay, the more you start to wonder, how many ripples have you created without ever noticing? Before that thought sinks too deep, a door creaks open behind you. Not a magical portal or a shimmering gate, just an old sliding panel made of rotted wood and rusted iron. You pass through it, and the temperature drops so fast your teeth ache. This is the cold hell, or one of them anyway. In Japanese Buddhist cosmology, there isn't one cold hell, there are 8. Each one colder than the last, each reserved for specific sins, often rooted in arrogance, deceit, and spiritual betrayal. Fire punishes the body. Ice punishes the heart. The ground crunches beneath your feet, bones maybe, or shards of frozen tears. Snow drifts lazily from above, though there's no sky. The landscape is barren, flat. Nothing but fields of kneeling figures frozen halfway through their apologies. Their skin has cracked, their lips are blue, their hands are pressed together in permanent unfinished bows. These are souls who apologize too late, too little, too fake. The kind who said sorry to save face, not because they meant it. In this hell they kneel forever, mouths frozen open, the wind screaming through their teeth. Somewhere far ahead, a massive shape moves. Slowly. A towering figure cloaked in furs that twitch and writhe like living things. It carries a staff made of sharpened icicles, each one engraved with names. As it passes by the frozen souls, it pauses at random, places a finger on their foreheads and whispers something. When it does, the souls crumble into snow and blow away. Gone. Erased. This is the keeper of hollow apologies. And if you're wondering whether your own I'm sorries would have passed the test, well, same. The keeper glances in your direction for a moment, and though its face is hidden, you feel an uncomfortable warmth crawl across your chest. Like maybe your name was on one of those icicles. Like maybe it still is. You leave, quickly. The next path winds down again, spiral-shaped, narrower than before. And at the bottom, the floor glows with a faint amber light. You step into a hall made of red lacquered wood, polished to a mirror shine. It's beautiful, elegant even, but the elegance is suffocating. This is the Hall of Vanity. Each panel reflects a different version of the person walking through. Not your real self, but the one you showed the world. Some mirrors show you laughing too loudly at parties. Others show you staring at your phone instead of making eye contact. One shows you talking over someone. Another shows you smiling during someone else's sadness. The hallway is quiet, but judgment oozes from every polished surface. This punishment isn't cruel, it's exposing. It strips you of the personas you wore like armor and forces you to see what they cost, not just to others, but to yourself. You stop at one panel that shows you in your best moment, kind, engaged, helpful, and yet even that version of you fades under scrutiny, because in Yomi, even kindness is examined for motive. You push through the final door at the end of the hallway, and find yourself in a space that feels impossibly small and enormous at the same time. Like standing inside your own skull. Nothing exists here but thought. This is the Chamber of Echoes, a place where every soul must listen to the one thing they avoided most, themselves. Not their screams, not their prayers. Just the way they think when no one else is listening. You don't hear voices here. You hear patterns. You hear that one loop your brain always falls into. That spiral of fear, or insecurity, or superiority. That rhythm you never even realised you danced to. And now it's playing on repeat, at full volume. You stay as long as you can, maybe a few minutes, maybe an eternity. When you finally crawl out, because walking isn't an option, you feel hollowed out, like someone scooped the thought right out of your skull and left only space behind. There's a corridor waiting, you follow it. Because what else is there? And just when you think Yomi has shown you everything, fire, ice, silence, noise, memory, regret, you reach a small dark room, no light, no sound, just a single stone table, and on it, a bowl, filled with rice, still warm. You remember the rule, don't eat. But gods, are you hungry? You stare at the bowl of rice as if it's the most dangerous thing in all of Yomi. Not a demon, not a punishment, just plain white rice, still steaming faintly in the chill of the underworld. Each grain perfectly formed. No chopsticks, no spoon, no instructions, just a quiet invitation sitting on a stone table that somehow radiates more pressure than everything you've seen so far. It's not just that you're hungry. You are, but this hunger feels older, deeper, like it was planted in you long before you entered Yomi, long before you even died. If you were dead at all, this isn't hunger for food, this is hunger for relief, for stillness, for something to make it stop. You take one step forward, just one. The air tightens instantly, like the entire room is holding its breath. Because you know the rule. Everyone who knows anything about Yomi knows the rule. You don't eat here. Ever. Not a bite, not a crumb, not a single grain of rice. The moment you do, you stop being a visitor. You stop being an intruder, an anomaly, a stray. You belong. The rice seals your fate. It's not cursed. It's not poisonous. It's just binding. The stories say that Izanami made the same mistake. That she died, entered Yomi, and out of hunger or politeness or simply divine ignorance ate the food of the dead. And that was it. Game over. She couldn't leave. Couldn't go back to the world of gods and daylight. She became something else, a corpse goddess, a ruler of rot. You look down at the bowl again and wonder how many other souls thought they could take just one bite. There's a sound behind you now. Soft. Barefoot footsteps. You turn slowly and see a small figure walking into the room. It's a child, or it looks like one at first. A small girl in a simple white kimono stained with soot and ash. Her hair is messy, her eyes are enormous, black deep, and far too still for her age. She doesn't speak. She just walks past you and sits down cross-legged in front of the table. Then she places her hands on her knees and stares at the rice without blinking. You open your mouth to ask her something, but then you notice what's behind her. Hundreds of similar bowls, arranged neatly along the walls, each one untouched, each one still warm. You hadn't seen them when you entered. Now you can't unsee them. The girl finally speaks, and her voice is impossibly calm, almost bored. They left these for us. You glance at her again. Who did? You ask, your voice rough from disuse. The ones who didn't want us, she says, as if she's explaining the weather. Then she points to a small statue in the corner of the room. It's a Jizo, a guardian spirit of children, especially those who died before birth or shortly after. He's hunched under a small stone umbrella, robes carved with surprising care. His face is gentle, smiling faintly. The girl nods toward him. He watches, but he can't stop us. The air grows colder, more still. You look at the girl again and feel a pressure rise in your chest. This isn't just a punishment room. This is the limbo of the unborn. This is where the souls of children who never made it to life wait, sometimes for a prayer, sometimes for a name, and sometimes for nothing at all. Miscarriages, stillbirths, abandoned infants. In some cases, even terminated pregnancies. This place is controversial, has always been. Some traditions describe it as sad but serene. Others say it's filled with crying and loneliness. Some modern scholars reject the idea entirely, arguing it's a reflection of societal guilt projected into mythology. And yet here it is, not screaming, not punishing, just waiting. The bowls of rice are offerings, left by monks, by families, by strangers. But no one eats them. The children never touch them, not because they aren't hungry, but because they're still waiting to be remembered in a way that counts. A name whispered at a temple, a prayer left at a roadside shrine, a moment of regret, a moment of love. That's what feeds them, not the food. You crouch down slowly next to the girl. "Do you want to leave?" you ask. She shrugs. "Don't know what it's like outside," she says. "Never saw it." Then she turns and looks at you with eyes that do blink now, and behind them is something impossibly old. "But you did." She leans in slightly. "Do you think it was worth it?" You don't answer. "You don't know." She nods anyway, like that was the answer she expected. Then she stands, walks over to the statue of Jizo, and places a small pebble at its base. You hadn't noticed them before, but now you see that the statue's base is covered in tiny stones. Hundreds, maybe thousands, each one placed by a child, each one a kind of spiritual ladder. It's said that in some versions of the myth, these stones represent the children's attempt to climb out of limbo. Every time someone remembers them, a stone is added. Every time someone forgets them, a stone is knocked away by demons. It's an eternal game of hope versus time. The girl returns to her spot and sits again. You rise. The bowl of rice still steams on the table, but it doesn't tempt you anymore. It just feels like something left out too long. You back away and leave the room quietly. The corridor beyond is dim, lined with more Jizo statues. Some have hats, others wear bibs. All have been offered something: a flower, a coin, a candy, a handmade charm. Someone remembered them. Someone still does. You pass through, stepping carefully as if not to wake anyone. Eventually the statues thin out, and the corridor ends in a small open space lit by a weak red glow. A stone lantern burns at the centre. Surrounded by a circle of straw sandals, dozens of pairs, child-sized. You kneel without meaning to, and one of the sandals moves, just slightly, like something in this place saw you and forgave you. You rise and step into the shadows once more, the air warmer now, not because of mercy, but because Yomi is drawing you deeper. Not everyone in the underworld is here because they died. Some are here because they won't let go, and that's who you're about to meet. You leave the sandals behind like breadcrumbs in reverse, each one marketing a life unlived, each one heavy with a silence that never made it to the surface. The corridor tightens again, narrowing into something more intimate, almost domestic. You're not walking through stone halls anymore. This feels like a hallway in a house, old wood, narrow beams, rice paper walls. You catch a whiff of incense, faint and bitter, like it was burned days ago and never properly aired out. The floor creaks beneath your feet. The creak echoes for too long. A door slides open without you touching it. You step through, and you're in a room that feels familiar. Tatami mats on the floor, a small shrine in the corner, low table, a cup of tea still steaming gently, no visible source of heat, no hands that made it. But the cup is warm, and the room feels lived in or unlived in. It's hard to say. It smells like camphor and mothballs, scented layers of memory pressed into a space that shouldn't exist here. In the far corner sits a woman, knees tucked neatly beneath her, hands folded in her lap. She doesn't look at you at first. Her head is bowed, long black hair falling like a curtain across her face. She wears a simple kimono, colour faded beyond recognition. She is still as a scroll painting. You step closer. She finally raises her head. And what you see is worse than rot, worse than bone. Her face is normal, intact, not monstrous, not melting, not eyeless, but it's empty. Not blank, emptied. Like someone scooped out every sense of identity, leaving only a shell still pretending to be human. Her eyes meet yours, and you feel the weight of centuries of waiting. "Have you seen him?" she asks, voice like paper tearing. You hesitate. She doesn't blink. "Have you seen my husband?" she repeats. "He said he would come back. He said he would bring the medicine. He said he just needed one more day." She smiles. It's not a smile meant for you. It's a smile trained into the muscles. A practice shape of hope that's long since snapped in half. This is not a spirit being punished. This is a spirit punishing itself. You've entered the room of the unrelenting dead. Not the damned, not the forgotten. These are the ones who chose to stay. Not because they deserved to, not because they were cursed, but because they refused to move on. You back out of the room carefully, and she doesn't follow. She just sits there, whispering the same question again and again, folding and unfolding her hands like she's kneeling at the world's longest funeral. Outside the room you see more doors now, some slightly open, some shut tight, some with a single pale hand resting just beyond the threshold. You pass them one by one, each space containing a soul who stayed out of stubbornness, heartbreak, guilt, or sheer denial. Here's the thing no one likes to say out loud. Not everyone wants to be free. You stop at one door, cracked open just enough to see inside. A man sits at a writing desk, his back to you, scribbling furiously with a brush on parchment that rolls down the floor and curls around his ankles. He's writing the same sentence over and over. I never meant to hurt her. His brush moves faster than it should, as if trying to outrace whatever answer might come back. This room is filled with that energy, the unfinished energy. Souls that refuse to admit that the story is over. They can't cross the river, can't face judgment, can't reincarnate. They were not banished. They're choosing this, and Yomi, in all its grim courtesy, lets them. A niche in the wall catches your attention. It's filled with small objects. A scarf, a cracked phone, an old key, a pair of broken glasses, personal items, left here by the dead, perhaps in hopes that someone, anyone, would come looking for them. You reach out toward a small stuffed animal on the shelf, a dog missing an ear, and the air suddenly sharpens. Presence rushes up behind you. Fast, you turn, there's no one. But a voice rakes the inside of your skull. You don't get to take anything. You back away, palms up, pulse pounding. The stuffed animal watches you anyway. Somewhere down the corridor, a sliding door slams shut on its own. You move faster. This place has a smell now. Not decay, not sulphur, memory. That weird, sickly sweet scent of old books, stale perfume, and a closet that hasn't been opened since someone moved out. It sticks in your nose, in your mouth. You taste regrets like perfume on your tongue. Another door opens. Inside, a young man is staring into a mirror that doesn't reflect anything, just blackness. He's mouthing something over and over. You lean closer, he's saying, I was better than that. You realise this level of Yomi isn't about sin or karma or divine justice. It's about the human refusal to let go of an identity that no longer exists. You watch him for a moment longer. Then he shatters the mirror with his bare hand, and it repairs itself instantly. You leave. The hallway finally ends at a narrow bridge. Rickety, wooden, suspended over nothing. Literally nothing. No abyss, no flame, no water. Just pure blackness. Like someone scraped the concept of space out from under the world. The bridge creaks as you step onto it. On the far side is a simple gate glowing faintly like the end of a level in a video game. But it doesn't feel like a reward, it feels like a choice. A sign hangs above the gate. Carved into the wood is a single character. Gui, Keiru, to return, to go home. But here's the trick. You don't know where home is anymore. You've seen so much of Yomi that the world above feels like a rumour. A half-remembered dream. Were you even alive when you came here? Or is this just a particularly vivid death? Behind you, the corridor of refusal groans. Somewhere another door slides open. You hear soft footsteps and a familiar voice asking, Have you seen him? You face the gate again, and step through, not because you know what's next, but because staying still is the one thing you know you can't do. The gate doesn't swing or slide open, it just is open 1 second after it wasn't. You walk through it instinctively, like a dream where you move without meaning to, driven by logic that only makes sense in the moment. The wooden boards beneath your feet creak with every step, but the noise fades behind you instead of echoing ahead. Whatever place you're entering doesn't allow sound to linger. You're no longer in corridors or chambers. This new stretch of Yomi is open, vast, a field of ash and stone dimly lit by a sky that pulses grey and purple like bruised flesh under skin. The air here doesn't move, it just presses, dense and thick, filling your lungs like it's trying to settle inside you and stay. There are no buildings, no shrines, no guardians, just open space and scattered figures moving in slow, jagged paths across the plain. They look almost human. Almost. Their limbs are elongated in places, arms that reach too far, necks bent at wrong angles, eyes too wide, mouths too narrow. Some of them drag long robes, Others are half naked, but none seem cold. They move not like they're walking, but like they're being pulled, as if each step is the result of an argument they're slowly losing against gravity. You don't recognize the terrain, but something in your chest tightens anyway, because this is the realm of the hungry ghosts. In Japanese Buddhism, they're called gaki, souls cursed with insatiable craving, not just for food or water, but for anything they obsessed over in life: status, praise, lust, money. The gaki are not punished by fire or by chains. Their prison is desire. Unending, rotting, devouring desire. You walk slowly now, more carefully. You don't want to be noticed. The first gaki you pass is curled in on itself, mouth stretched into a frozen scream, hands digging into the dirt as if trying to claw something up from the earth. Its stomach is bloated, its tongue blackened. Every few minutes it lifts its head and tries to eat the ash around it, but the ash turns to needles in its mouth. It sobs without sound, then repeats. A little further on, another figure stands perfectly still beneath the ghost sky, staring upward. Its eyes are sockets that pulse faintly with red light. In its hands it holds a bowl, wooden, cracked, filled with water that never reaches its lips. Every time it drinks, the water slips through its throat and drips back into the bowl. It tries again, and again, and again. This level of Yomi doesn't feel loud, it doesn't roar or howl, it aches. Everything here is driven by one horrible rhythm. Need, attempt, failure, repeat. The ground is scattered with ruined offerings, mouldy fruit, half-burned incense sticks, shattered cups. Someone tried to give these souls peace once, maybe family, maybe a monk, but the offerings were poorly made or forgotten, or simply not enough. You stop walking when you reach a cluster of them gathered around a flame. They don't touch it. They just watch it flicker. This is a symbolic fire, a ceremonial torch that probably came from some ancient rite. In Japanese tradition, offerings to gaki are carefully structured. Clean water, white rice, incense, and specific prayers recited during Obon, the festival when the dead visit the living. But if those rituals are skipped or performed incorrectly, the soul doesn't move on, it just lingers, longing. A soul too greedy in life becomes a gaki. But here's the twist. You don't have to be rich or powerful to be greedy. It doesn't take a palace to die starving. You kneel for a moment in the ash, not sure why, maybe guilt, maybe just fatigue. You feel the eyes of the hungry ghosts on you, not in anger, in hope. They think you might be someone who brought food, or prayer, or closure, but you're just as lost as they are. One of them steps toward you, a woman, face mostly intact, arms long and skeletal, dragging behind her. Her mouth opens and closes, like she's trying to form a word she's forgotten. Her neck stretches slowly, her eyes searching yours, and she reaches toward your face, not to grab you, just to touch, to make sure you're real. You flinch, she recoils. She doesn't try again. She simply folds into herself, sinking to her knees, and begins to dig through the ash like a dog. A few others join her. One begins to laugh, another chews on the dirt until their teeth crumble. This is Yomi's most pitiful punishment. Not wrath, not revenge, just craving without end. Scholars often debate whether the gaki are truly damned, or whether they're simply stuck in a karmic waiting room. There are rituals in Buddhist practice to release them. Sagaki, for instance, a rite that opens the gate between the realms and offers relief through food, fire, and prayer. But like all rituals, it only works if someone remembers to do it. And here, in this corner of the underworld, no one remembers. You rise and continue forward. The ash gets deeper. Eventually you reach the edge of the plain, a jagged cliff that drops into more darkness. And at the cliff's edge is a figure, seated calmly, legs crossed, hands in their lap. A monk, or something like one. They wear no shoes. Their robe is torn, their hair is shorn close, and their eyes are open but empty, fixed on a point beyond the abyss. You sit beside them, they don't move, and then, without looking at you, they speak. They are hungry for what they will never name. Their voice is smooth, ancient, strangely warm. They wanted comfort, or closure, or to feel right. They thought they could get it in life, and when they didn't, they believed death would fix it. They tilt their head slightly toward you. And you? What did you think death would fix? You don't answer, because you don't know if you're dead, and you don't know if it matters anymore. The monk looks back toward the void. There is one more level, they say, one more lesson. They rise slowly, dusting ash from their robe, and begin walking toward a staircase carved directly into the rock wall behind the cliff. Narrow, uneven, spiralling down, you follow. You don't look back. The gaki have returned to their cycle. They always do. The monk says nothing else, and neither do you. The stairs lead down, down, past dripping walls and thick cant. You begin to hear something now, distant, a rhythmic thudding. Not footsteps, not gears, something pounding. You know this sound. It's the sound of labour. You're about to enter the factory floor, not of punishment, not of regret, but of rebirth. The descent takes longer than you expect. Not because the staircase is particularly steep or treacherous, though it is, but because every step downward feels heavier than the last. Like gravity is thickening around your ankles, forcing your bones to reconsider their loyalty. The monk walks ahead in silence, robes fluttering just slightly, like smoke caught in a breeze you can't feel. There's a sense of inevitability now, like this spiral has always been waiting for you to reach it, no matter how many corridors or regrets you drag behind you. The walls grow hotter, the air sharpens, tinged with iron and sweat. You hear it more clearly now, the pounding, the clanging, the distant grinding of something vast and relentless. It isn't chaotic, it's organised, rhythmic, a purpose-driven kind of suffering. Finally, you reach the base of the stairs and step into a massive open space, a chamber so wide it vanishes into haze at the edges. The floor is made of dark stone veined with glowing red cracks. Overhead, massive gears spin slowly, each one taller than a building, oiled with the fluids you don't want to identify. And everywhere around you, people, souls really, are working. This is the foundry of rebirth. Or at least that's what the monk calls it, finally breaking the silence beside you. Every soul comes here, and eventually, they murmur, not to be punished, to be repurposed. At first, you think he's speaking in riddles. Then you watch what's happening more closely. The workers here aren't being tortured, they're forging things. Large moulds filled with glowing liquid. Massive anvils where souls hammer symbols into sheets of translucent metal. In one corner, a group of figures assembles a spinning wheel the size of a temple bell, etching it with intricate kanji and strange celestial maps. You realise this is where reincarnation is constructed. Every tool, every body, every possibility, all of it built here, by the very souls who will pass through it. Before you return, the monk says, you must build the path back. It's not just a metaphor. The souls are literally constructing the framework that will become their next life. You pass a workstation where two hunched figures are sculpting something out of clay, a human heart shaped and reshaped with careful fingers. At another, a soul stitches glowing threads into a long tapestry made of cloud and bone. You don't know what any of it means, but the feeling in your gut is clear. This isn't punishment. It's penance with purpose. You approach one of the workstations. The soul there looks up. It's you. Not exactly, not physically, but spiritually, emotionally. This soul wears every choice you regret, every wound you never let heal. And yet they smile at you, not with pity, but with understanding. They push a small object toward you across the table. It's a mirror, shaped like a lotus petal, polished until it gleams. You look into it, and for a second you see your own eyes, but they're calm. No fear, no confusion, just readiness. This is the tool you'll need to carry forward. Not to remember who you were, but to accept who you must become. You pocket the mirror, and something inside your chest clicks. The monk nods. You're ready to move to the furnace. You don't like the sound of that, but of course you follow. The furnace chamber is behind a set of massive sliding doors, reinforced with bands of obsidian and silver. They open without a touch. Inside, the temperature spikes. Your skin prickles. The room glows red-orange, lit by a pit of molten light at the centre. Around it, souls walk slowly, each carrying something in their arms, objects, memories, pieces of themselves. One by one, they step to the edge and toss their offerings into the fire. You understand somehow without being told. This is where souls burn away what they can't take with them. Not by force, by choice, guilt, ego, shame, even a love sometimes, all of it too heavy to carry into another lifetime. One soul casts in a bundle of letters, weeping as they vanish. Another throws a mask carved into the likeness of a parent. One carries a photograph, faded, water-damaged, tosses it in, doesn't flinch. You step to the edge and the monk places a hand on your shoulder. You must give something up, they say. Here, see. You reach into yourself, not literally, but close, and pull something out. It's not an object. It's a truth. Something you've always believed about yourself. Something you've worn like armour. Something you know has to go. You don't name it, you just toss it into the flames. The fire doesn't roar or crackle, it sighs, and the thing is gone. You feel lighter. Not better, just lighter. Across from the pit is a final doorway. Smaller. Simpler. It leads out of the foundry. Few remember this part, the monk says. When they wake, the memories fade. All that remains is the weight of what they lost or gained. You ask if this means it's over. If you've seen all of Yomi. The monk shakes their head. No, there is one more level as you sigh. Of course there is. He nods toward the door. Go through. The next part is not about judgment. It's about waiting. You walk. The door closes behind you, and the world turns grey. You've entered the waiting field, a quiet, windless plain of grass that sways without moving. There are no demons here, no ghosts, just silence. You sit, not because you're told to, because you want to. And for the first time since this journey began, you close your eyes. No visions, no fear, just breath. You don't know how long you sit there. Could be minutes, could be decades. But eventually someone calls your name, not a judge, not a god, just a whisper on the breeze. You stand, because something is coming. And this time it's not a punishment, it's a beginning. You stand slowly in the field, legs stiff from stillness, though your body doesn't ache the way it should. Nothing in this place follows the rules of the world you came from. Time slips. Pain softens. Even gravity is more of a polite suggestion than a law. The grass sways gently now, though there's no wind to move it. It brushes against your skin like cool silk. You take a deep breath, not because you need air, but because it feels right. You're not in a prison anymore. You're in a pause. The whisper that called your name doesn't repeat itself. It doesn't need to. You heard it not with your ears, but with that small hidden part of yourself that's always listening, even when you pretend you're not. And now it's guiding you forward, not toward judgment, not toward punishment, but toward something stranger. Something that feels suspiciously like possibility. You begin to walk through this grass, and with each step the colour around you shifts. Green into gold, gold into silver, then into that soft, chalky blue of early morning fog. The sky above remains colourless, like the underside of a closed eyelid. You pass no landmarks, no signs, just space. Then, without warning, you arrive. It's a village, or a memory of one. Empty houses line narrow dirt paths. The buildings are old but clean, each with sliding paper doors and wooden beams. Lanterns hang at each doorway, unlit, swaying slightly despite the still air. There's no sound of life, no voices, no footsteps, no cicadas chirping in the trees, just the feeling that someone should be here. You step through the village slowly, feet barely disturbing the dust. You notice subtle details. A cup left out on a porch, half filled with a tea that's long gone cold, a sandal too small to belong to you, resting just inside a doorway. An incense holder still releasing a thin, spiralling wisp of smoke. Then you see them. People. Not like the souls in the other parts of Yomi. These ones look alive, whole. Not twisted, not burning, not weeping. They walk slowly through the village, not avoiding you, but not acknowledging you either. You're not one of them, yet. They move with purpose, each of them engaged in small, quiet tasks. Folding laundry, drawing water from a well that has no rope, feeding koi in a pond that ripples without wind. It's not eerie, it's gentle, and deeply unsettling. This is Yomi's holding village. Not a punishment. Not a reward, a waiting room. But not for judgment, for re-entry. These are the souls who are in line for reincarnation. Not quite ready, not quite complete, but closer than most. They've been through the cleansing fires. The halls of regret, the furnaces of release. They've shed enough of their past selves to be ready for another life. But not all of them are eager to go. One figure, an elderly man, sits on a porch smoking a Kizu pipe that never seems to run out. His eyes track you as you pass. You stop. "Long walk, huh?" he says. exhaling a little puff of non-existent smoke. You nod, because yes, very long, he chuckles. You'd be surprised how many get this far and turn around, beg to go back, say they left something unfinished. He taps the end of the pipe against his sandal. No one ever finishes everything. You'd be here forever if that was the rule. You ask him what this place is. He gestures vaguely at the empty ski, call it a cosmic bus stop. You sit beside him for a while. Neither of you speaks. There's a kind of peace in the silence, like the village itself is built from stillness. Eventually you ask him what he's waiting for. He doesn't answer immediately, just stares off into the distance, eyes glassy. Then quietly, I'm waiting for a life where I don't waste it. You want to ask more, but you already know he's said all he can. You rise and keep walking. At the edge of the village is a small shrine, no larger than a closet. Inside is a simple statue of Ksitigaba, known in Japan as Jizo Bosatsu, the same figure you saw in the Chamber of the Unborn. But here, he's not cradling children. He holds a staff in one hand and a wish-granting jewel in the other. His face is soft, serene, watching you without judgment. You bow before the shrine without knowing why. As you do, the sky begins to brighten, not dramatically, just enough for the light to shift from grey to pale gold. The villagers begin to stir slightly. A few stop what they're doing, look up. Some begin walking toward the far end of the field where a mist has started to roll in, thick glowing from within. One by one they step into it and vanish. You realise it's not death, it's birth. This is the cue, the last threshold before return, and it's not about readiness, not really. It's about surrender, the willingness to be reshaped, to forget all you've learnt, to re-enter a world where pain and joy come in equal measure. You're allowed to go forward. You've passed through the layers, paid with memory and discomfort and the sacrifice of certainty. But there's a problem. You're not sure you want to go, not because you fear life, but because now you've seen this. Yomi, its structure, its meaning, its ghosts and rituals and bureaucratic wheels. You've seen how the dead are measured, not with scales but with substance. How forgetting can hurt more than flame. How the worst punishments aren't loud, they're quiet. And you've seen how judgment isn't the end, it's the middle. You step toward the mist, slowly. The ground softens beneath your feet. The air begins to hum, not music, just the sound of becoming. But as you lift your foot toward the edge, you hear something that stops you cold. Your name, not whispered, spoken, clearly, by a voice you recognize. You turn. Standing at the other end of the village is someone you left behind, someone you thought was gone forever. Alive? Dead? You don't know, but they're here, looking at you, waiting. You take a step back from the mist, because apparently Yomi isn't done with you yet. You still have work to do. The mist recedes behind you, obedient to your hesitation. It curls inward like a curtain drawn back, revealing only the field of swaying grass again. Familiar now, but just as uncertain. The light dims. The temperature drops slightly, not in a punishing way, but in that peculiar way you feel when you realise you're no longer moving forward. You've been summoned, pulled backward and through the current just when you were beginning to drift toward the surface. The figure at the far edge of the field stands very still. You take another step toward them, slow, reluctant. You're not afraid, not exactly, but something deep inside you tightens, like your bones are bracing for something your memory hasn't caught up to yet. As you get closer, details form. It's a man. His face soft, not young, but not old either. Clothes worn but neat. There's a light behind his eyes, faint but familiar, like the memory of fire on a cold night. He says your name again, this time quieter, like he's not sure you'll answer. You do, or at least you try. The word comes out like wind between teeth, dry and cracked. Your voice is the most human thing you've felt in ages. He smiles, just barely. I wasn't sure you'd still be... you. You blink. You know this man, not his name, not his role, but his shape. The tone of him. He was part of your life once, maybe a friend, maybe something more complicated. Not necessarily someone you lost, just someone who disappeared. The kind of loss that doesn't come with a funeral or a farewell. The kind that lingers like a question you were too tired to keep asking. I've been trying to reach you, he says. They don't make it easy. You glance around the field. No one else has stopped. The souls moving toward reincarnation ignore this moment entirely. They don't even notice. The man nods as if reading your thoughts. They can't see me, only you can, because you're still cracked open. You don't speak, but something in you shifts. A memory like smoke starts to curl up from the back of your mind. The two of you on a train, a park bench at sunset, a phone call cut off too early. You don't know which is real, maybe none of it. Why are you here, he chuckles softly. Because you don't remember what you promised. That's when the air changes again. The village vanishes behind you. The field twists. The ground beneath your feet rolls like fabric being tugged. You don't fall, but everything else does. The monk, the path to reincarnation, the familiar, gone. You're somewhere new now, a place between places. A liminal layer of Yomi most never reach. Not because it's hidden, but because it's forgotten. This is the realm of the stray monks, and the man walking beside you is one of them. The sky here is always twilight. Faint sun behind endless clouds. Tall pines rise on either side of a narrow dirt path, their roots braided like old ropes. The forest hums faintly, not with insects, but with sutras. The wind whispers chants you don't understand but somehow know by heart. The man, your almost memory, your unfinished chapter, leads you forward. Most people don't know, he says, brushing a low-hanging branch from the path, but not all souls make it through the system. Some slip out, not up, not down, sideways. You step over a tangle of roots, nodding slowly. And what happens to them, you ask? He smiles faintly. They become us. He gestures to the trees, and you finally see them, monks in tattered robes sitting beneath the branches. Some are meditating, others are writing in dirt with sticks, a few are simply watching you. Their faces are calm, their eyes ancient, not hopeless, not at peace, just here. We're the ones who stopped moving, he continues. We weren't ready to reincarnate, but we weren't cursed enough to be punished, so we stayed, and we watched. You pass a clearing where one monk sits with his hands in a bowl of water. He's scrying, watching a funeral happening far away, somewhere in the living world. You see a mother crying, a child laying flowers, candles flickering. She never finished mourning, your guide says, so he's helping her from here. Just a little, just enough. Another monk is sketching a diagram in the air. Lines of glowing script floating briefly before fading. A soul map, a karmic ledger. You can't read it, but it vibrates with importance. These are the guides, your companion tells you. Not angels, not teachers, just watchers who still care. He stops, turns to face you fully, and now you have to choose. The path behind you is gone. There's no going back to the village. The mist of rebirth is far behind you, sealed off by your hesitation. In front of you are 3 roads, none marked. One leads into a dense part of the forest. Another winds toward a mountain peak in the far distance, lit by the last light of a vanishing sun. The third disappears into a cave mouth wide and low, like an exhale from the belly of the earth. You can become one of us, he says. Stay here, wait, watch, or you can return. You look at the first path, the forest. To stay, he says, is to help, but never to be seen. Your presence will guide others, but your name will fade. Then the mountain. To climb is to seek wisdom, but there is no summit, only the climb. Then the cave. To return is to forget, to be born again. You'll live, but you won't remember any of this. You're silent. You stare at the 3 paths and wonder if this was always the choice, or if you have simply earned it by accident. He doesn't pressure you, just watches. Finally, you speak. What did you choose? He smiles again, sad, warm, infinite. I chose to wait, for you. Then he fades, not into mist or shadow. He simply steps back into the trees. You're alone again. 3 paths, no map, no promises. You take a deep breath, and for the first time since arriving in Yomi, you realize there is no right answer. There is only what you're willing to carry. You stand at the crossroads longer than you probably should. The 3 paths offer no sound, no movement, no gentle push in one direction or the other. There is no wind here, no divine voice whispering from the trees, no scrolls unrolling in midair to tell you what you were meant to do. Just a long, aching stillness. It would almost feel peaceful if it weren't also so crushingly personal. The forest path is dark, dense. You can't see more than a few meters into it before the branches knit themselves together, like interlocked fingers. There's no light filtering through. It feels old, not in the sense of history, but in the way a house feels when it hasn't been entered in generations. You imagine yourself disappearing into that green silence, spending eternity shaping the paths of others without them ever knowing you were there. It's a humbling idea, maybe even noble, but it also tastes like loneliness. The mountain trail gleams in the distance. The slope is steep, the terrain jagged and dry, but there's a kind of glow to it, subtle, golden, just enough to make you think there's something waiting at the top, but your companion's words echo in your mind. There is no summit, just the climb. A life or death spent in pursuit of understanding that never fully arrives. To chase truth and live in the asking. You wonder if you have the stamina for that, or if anyone does. Then there's the cave. It breathes. That's not a metaphor. It actually breathes, a low, steady rhythm of air pulling in and out of the mouth of stone. You feel it across your skin, across your soul. The air smells like soil and new rain and something less poetic. Forgetting. Pure, full forgetting. The cave promises reincarnation, yes, but not memory, not awareness. You'll be born again with no idea that you once walked through Yomi, no idea that you stood at this threshold with a soul heavy from the weight of the dead. The longer you stare, the more you realise this is the choice everyone makes, whether they know it or not. Some people come into the world new, blank, soft-eyed and unburdened. Others enter with questions they shouldn't be able to ask, shadows in their bones, instincts they can't trace. A hunger for meaning that shows up early and never leaves. Maybe those are the ones who didn't walk into the cave blindly but chose it. Maybe that's the only real difference. You inhale deeply. The air here doesn't taste like life, not yet, but it isn't death either. You close your eyes and listen. Somewhere faintly you hear laughter. Not cruel, not mocking. The soft kind, someone laughing at something silly, something forgotten, something you once said on a summer day you barely remember. Then you hear the ocean, not near, but steady, the kind of sound that lives inside your blood when you've grown up close to it. And then you hear crying, a single wail, high-pitched, raw, immediate. A baby's first breath. The cave calls louder now. You step toward it and stop. Something's wrong. There's a pull at your chest, subtle but sharp, like a thread being tugged. You glance down, half expecting to see a cord of silk or light trailing from your heart. Nothing. But the feeling is undeniable. You're tethered, not to a place, not to a choice, to someone. You turn back toward the forest. The trees ripple. A figure steps out, small, delicate. A child, you know her face, not because you've seen her before, but because you've missed her. You've missed her for so long you stopped realizing it was grief. She doesn't speak, just walks toward you, stops a few steps away, and reaches out a hand. In it she holds a stone. You've seen one like it before, back in the Chamber of the Unborn, one of the pebbles placed at the feet of the Jizo statue. She holds it like it's important, like it's yours. You crouch slowly. "Is this yours?" you ask. She shakes her head, then tilts it to the side, considering. "It was going to be," she says, "but I didn't get to finish being born." You feel the earth tilt under your feet. This is your child. Not in the genetic sense, not necessarily, but in the way two souls can be drawn to each other in the space between lives. She smiles sadly. "I think I got scared." Tears prick your eyes. She steps closer. "But if you go back," she says, "I might get to try again." You glance toward the cave, that breathing tunnel of forgetting, then back at her. "And if I don't?" She shrugs. "Then I'll stay here. Maybe someone else will come find me. Maybe not." The air thickens. This isn't a punishment, it's a possibility. Not a lesson, a seed. You take the stone from her hand, it's warm. You feel it glow faintly in your palm. She steps back into the trees without another word. You rise, and now the cave isn't just a promise, it's a chance. You approach it slowly, the stone clutched in your hand. The monk's words echo again. To return is to forget. You take a breath, and walk into the mouth of the cave. It's dark, then warm, then full of light. Your body dissolves, your name dissolves, but the intention, the thread, the echo, the pull that remains. You will forget everything, but somewhere deep inside you will remember the need to find her again, the need to finish what was started. And when you're born again, the first breath you take won't just be air. It will be a promise. You don't remember the moment you cross the threshold, not in any way your mind can hold on to. There's no great surge of emotion, no celestial explosion, no tunnel of light or montage of your past lives waving goodbye in slow motion. There's just warmth, gentle, overwhelming warmth. It cradles you, fills your chest, spills through your limbs like melted wax. For one impossible moment, you are nothing, no gender, no name, no memory, no timeline, just awareness suspended in a fluid sense of becoming. Then even that vanishes. You don't notice the cold at first. It's subtle, creeping, not from the outside in, but from within, like a memory of cold, a silence stretching too thin. You have no eyes now, not really, but you begin to feel space again, pressure on all sides, something pulsing nearby, rhythmic and slow. A heartbeat, not yours. The world around you is muffled, as if wrapped in blankets of water and time. You're not yet alive, but you're not quite dead anymore either. You exist in the womb of the universe, halfway through the last page of one book and just starting the prologue of the next. You're not dreaming, but it feels like you are. And then something shifts. Sharpness. Not pain exactly, but discomfort. The fluid warmth begins to recede. Something is changing. The rhythm speeds up. The pressure builds. You're being pushed, drawn forward, compressed by a force greater than will, greater than fear. You're being born, and this time you don't scream. Not yet. You emerge into a world of brightness and noise. So much noise. It crashes into you like waves. Light, voices, movement, sensation. You open your mouth instinctively. Air floods in and your body begins to shake, unused to the rawness of breathing. There's no memory here. No echo of the underworld. No lingering thought of gods or ghosts. But deep in your chest, something aches, something knows. You're placed on a chest. A heartbeat beneath you. Familiar but an unfamiliar. Skin against skin. Words are spoken in a language you don't understand, but the cadence is soothing, like lullabies carved into your bones in another life. Hands cradle you. A name is given. It doesn't feel like yours yet, but in time it will. You've returned. This should be the end, but it's not, because what happens in the first few years of a new life is more than growth and babbling and learning to hold a spoon. It's the slow, ghost-like unravelling of the life you left behind. The way a baby turns its head a little too fast at the sound of a bell. The way a toddler cries in their sleep after dreaming of an underground river they've never seen. The way a child finds comfort in the smell of incense, even if they've never been inside a temple. The soul forgets, but not all at once. For a while the memories cling like dew, tiny droplets of wonder and dread. You dream of stone halls, of narrow bridges, of laughter that turns to dust in your mouth. You wake crying sometimes, without knowing why. You feel the pressure of a choice you never remember making. As you grow, the dreams fade, your body stiffens. The world fills with homework and holidays and scraped knees. You learn language, but you forget meaning. You learn to walk, but you forget where you came from. You learn to love, but you forget who you once loved most. But deep down, in the place no one talks about, you still carry a single thread. Maybe it comes out in the stories you write as a child. Stories about ghosts that remember. About monks who wait. About rivers you must cross carefully, or be swallowed by your own secrets. Maybe it shows up in the way you hesitate at temple gates, or the way you instinctively bow your head at shrines, even if your parents don't tell you to. Maybe it flickers behind your eyes the first time you visit a cemetery, a sense that you're not there for someone else. You're there for you, or rather, for someone you were. Years pass, you grow, the thread thins, but one day, on a walk you didn't plan, down a street you've never taken before, you pass by a temple. Old, worn, forgotten by the modern skyline, the kind of place hidden behind grocery stores and telephone wires. There's a small stone statue at the edge of the path, Jizo, watching quietly beneath a dusting of cherry blossoms, and at his feet, a pebble, just one, a smooth, pale, familiar. You stop, your heart stumbles. You step forward and kneel, again not out of habit, not out of religion, but because something inside you falls into place. You pick up the pebble, and for a single brief moment it's like the sky folds back. You remember her, not clearly, not by name, but the ache of her hand in yours, the sound of her voice, the look on her face when she gave you the stone and said she'd try again. You place the pebble at Jizo's feet, this time with intention. Not because you were told to, because it matters, and then you rise and walk away. You don't look back, you don't need to. Somewhere deep inside, you know she'll find her way, because now you did. Years pass, but you don't notice them in the usual way. Time in this new life feels linear and logical on the surface. Days marked by school bells, calendar pages, blinking clocks. But beneath it all, there's a rhythm much older pulsing faintly in your bones. A kind of low drumbeat echoing across lifetimes. You don't think about Yomi anymore, not really. The dreams have faded, as they always do. The memories unspooled into mist. But something inside you still leans toward the shadows. Not in fear, but in recognition. You grow into someone people call grounded, sensitive. A little off. You're the kid who spends too much time in graveyards without being morbid, who lingers at the edges of festivals as if looking for something not on the map. You're the one who knows exactly how to fold your hands at a shrine, even if no one ever taught you. The kid who lights a candle and doesn't make a wish, just closes their eyes and waits. Listening. Always listening. You don't remember the name of the girl from the field, but she follows you in small ways. The way you hesitate in antique shops when you pass by an old doll with a missing arm. The way your stomach turns when you see a rice bowl left out too long. Steam rising from it in a way that feels wrong. The way a certain song makes you weep, though you couldn't say why if pressed. And it's in that space, between memory and instinct, that something finds you again. It begins subtly. A whisper in your sleep, softer than dreams. A tug at the edge of your consciousness. You start waking at odd hours. 3:33, 4:44, your heart pounding for no reason you can name. You stare at your ceiling and wonder why you feel watched. Not by something threatening, but by something waiting. Something familiar. One night you light incense without thinking. It's not a holiday. It's not anyone's anniversary. You just feel like it. You kneel before the small altar you built months ago, an old wooden box on your bookshelf filled with pebbles, origami, a charm you found on the street and couldn't bring yourself to throw away. You don't know what you're praying to, or for. You just breathe. The smoke curls, and then you hear it. Footsteps, small ones. Not in your house, in your soul. You close your eyes and see her again, not clearly, not visually, but as a presence, a warmth pressed against your ribs, feeling like holding hands with someone across dimensions. You don't cry, you just sit there quiet as the room shifts its boats around you, as the veil between lives ripples like silk in a breeze. And then the incense goes out, snuffed, not burned. A sign. In Japanese folklore, spirits often use subtle signs. Extinguished flames, dropped objects, dreams that feel like memories. They're not flashy, they don't need to be. The afterlife is less interested in spectacle, and more in the small nudges that keep your feet on the right path. You wait, unsure what to expect. For a few weeks nothing changes. Then one morning you pass a child on the street. She's with her mother, laughing, jumping along the sidewalk in 2 large rain boots, her hair tied up in a loose bouncy bun. She glances at you just for a second and smiles. You feel it in your chest, a pull, no recognition in her eyes, just joy, unfiltered, familiar. She turns the corner and vanishes. You stand there, hand pressed over your heart, suddenly short of breath. Not because you know it was her, but because some part of you hopes it was. The months after that feel different, lighter. You move through your days with less weight, less urgency. You stop looking for meaning in every shadow. Stop trying to interpret the cracks in your dreams like code, because you've done it now. You kept your promise, and in doing so, you've let go of the need to remember everything. It's around this time that people start describing you differently. Wise, grounded, old soul. You never know what to say to that. If only they knew what it took to feel this calm, what you had to walk through, what you had to forget. One rainy afternoon years later, you find yourself sitting on a train. You're older now, not old but grown, the kind of grown that carries silence like a friend and understands the value of sitting still. The window beside you blurs with water, and your reflection wavers in the glass, briefly replaced by a face that looks like yours, but isn't. A flicker, gone before you can blink. You don't panic, you just smile. The train slows at a small countryside station, barely more than a platform and a vending machine. You weren't planning to get off here, but your hand moves before you can argue. You step onto the platform, into the rain. The village is quiet, old. Exactly the kind of place where stories like this end. You walk a little. Find a path lined with moss-covered stones. At the top, a small shrine. And there, waiting beneath the eaves, is a Jizo statue. You kneel again, this time without hesitation. Not because something is wrong, but because something is right. You place a new pebble at its base, not to ask for anything, not to guide anyone, just to say thank you for the remembering, for the forgetting, for the journey through the dark. You sit a while in the rain, watching it bead across the statue's face like tears that never needed to fall. Somewhere deep beneath your feet, Yomi hums. Not as a threat, not as a warning, just as a reminder that the underworld isn't a place you escape, it's a place you carry. And if you carry it gently, it doesn't have to weigh you down. It's strange how easily you forget that the dead are still watching, not in a spooky, flickering artisan moving chairs kind of way, but gently, like breath fogging up glass from the other side. Not there to scare you, just there, quiet, waiting to be remembered. Yomi never really let go of you, and maybe it never planned to, because even in this new life, with your new name and your new house and your new worries that include bills and laundry and maybe what's in the back of your fridge, you still feel it. The press of the other world, the rhythm of footsteps echoing behind yours, just out of sync. Some days you hear them louder than others, especially when you forget, because memory is sacred in Japan, not just your own, but collective memory. The idea that forgetting a name isn't just rude, it's dangerous. When someone is forgotten completely, they fade. Not just from the world of the living, but from everything. From Yomi, from the waiting fields, from even the bureaucratic ledgers of the dead. And that's why today you find yourself standing in a tiny family cemetery behind a temple you'd never noticed before, staring at a stone so weather-worn it doesn't even have a name anymore. You weren't planning this, it wasn't on the schedule, but your feet brought you here, and the incense in your bag, the one you keep for reasons you can't explain, is suddenly in your hand. You light it and place it in the holder. You bow. You say the only word that comes to mind, sorry. You're not sure who you're apologizing to. Maybe yourself, maybe everyone you forgot in the life before this. Maybe a certain girl who once handed you a pebble in the shadow of Jizo. The smoke curls upward. It doesn't rise straight. It twists, spirals, circles, and then you feel it. Behind you. You don't turn, you don't need to, you just know. A presence soft as old paper, warm as a worn blanket, watching, waiting. The dead don't demand attention. They are not jealous like the gods. They don't need parades or songs or 5-star reviews. They just want a little space in your life, a little room in your breath, a moment of stillness where you remember that they mattered. And because they mattered, you do too. You stay there a while, the gravel shifting under your knees, until the incense burns itself down. And then you rise, brush off your jeans, and leave. Not because you're done, but because they are. That night your dreams change again. No more haunted corridors or screaming souls or bone gates pulsing with cosmic dread. Instead you dream of a small tea house tucked into the edge of a misty cliff. Paper lanterns swing lazily in the breeze. The walls glow with that honeyed light only dreams can manage. Inside people sit and sip quietly. Not alive, not dead, just paused. Between. You walk in. There's a place set for you. No one greets you, no one has to. The tea is already steeped. The cup is warm. You sit. Across from you, a familiar face. You can't place it. You don't have to. You smile at each other and drink. Some say that in Japanese folklore, dreams are bridges, shortcuts across the thick veil of Yomi. Sometimes they're messages, sometimes warnings, and sometimes they're just visits. Tea with someone you used to love. Or used to be, or will become again someday. You wake up rested, but with a strange feeling in your chest, like something is waiting for you to notice it. You sit on the edge of your bed, the light from your window just beginning to turn gold, and then it clicks. You remember the name of the girl, not her real name. That was never given, but the name you gave her, in your head, in that quiet place inside you where names mean more than words. You whisper it, and somewhere, not in this world, but close enough to feel it, a candle lights itself. You start seeing signs after that, coins stacked neatly in odd places, shoes left perfectly aligned in doorways where no one's been. Children playing games with rules that echo the rituals you thought you'd forgotten, tossing pebbles over their shoulders, whispering numbers backward, chanting names 3 times and then bowing. At first you think it's just coincidence. But then you see the boy, in the subway. He's maybe 6, standing too still, watching the crowd like a monk watches wind in a garden. You make eye contact, he smiles, and you swear. He bows, not a deep bow, just a nod. But it's precise, old. You feel it in your chest like déjà vu sharpened into a blade, and then he's gone. Lost in the sea of commuters, back into the rhythm of the living, and you realise you're one of them now. Not one of the haunted, one of the watchers. You're still alive, but you see both sides. You don't need to visit Yomi anymore to know it's real. It lives with you in the edges of your mirrors, in the hush of incense smoke, in the faces of strangers who aren't really strangers at all. Maybe you died and came back, maybe you just remembered something too early. Doesn't matter. The work is the same. You light your incense, you bow at shrines, you remember the names, and every once in a while, when no one else is looking, you leave a stone at Jizo's feet, not because you're asking for anything, but because someone somewhere still might be, and maybe this time you're the one who hears them. You start noticing the shifts more and more, those little flickers that break the illusion of the world being as solid as it pretends to be. A shadow moving the wrong way in a shop window. A train that pulls into a station exactly 1 minute early, every day, as if trying to catch someone who isn't there. You catch whiffs of incense in places no one would burn it. Gas stations, locker rooms, the back of a bus. It never lingers. Just brushes against you. Like a spirit passing through, unsure whether to ask for help or just offer a quiet nod. You're not afraid. You used to be, back when the unknown felt like a threat, back when shadows always meant danger. But now, the dark feels like a hallway you've already walked. You understand the layout, the exits, the quiet rules, and so when the veil starts to pull thin again, you don't fight it. It happens one evening just after sunset as you're walking home. The sky is still streaked with gold and pink, but the streetlights have already flickered on, one by one, without urgency. You're alone on the path, your steps slow, not in a rush to get anywhere. You pass an alley you don't recognise. Odd, since you've taken this route 100 times. The alley shouldn't exist. The buildings on either side are familiar, but tonight they've made room. There's a stone arch at the entrance. Simple, weathered. You know what it is before you even fully see it. A Torii gate, but older than any shrine you've visited. Its wood is dark and there's no vermilion left. Just moss and age. You hesitate. Then you step through. The air shifts. The sound of traffic behind you dulls, swallowed by something much older than silence. Ahead of you is a narrow path lined with lanterns, and beyond it, you don't know yet, but your feet are already moving. Because this is what happens when you truly open yourself to the presence of Yomi in the waking world. The boundaries stop being polite. The echoes come closer. You don't dream of spirits, you walk among them. As you move deeper into the lantern-lit path, the trees thicken. The light dims not from nightfall, but from memory, like the world is remembering how it felt to be shadowed. You begin to see small things along the edges of the trail. Offerings. A doll missing an eye. A candy wrapper carefully folded into a flower. A child's drawing pinned to a tree with a stick. You feel like you're being watched, but not by anything sinister, by someone hopeful. At the end of the path is a clearing. Stone steps lead up to a shrine so old, the kanji carved into its sign have eroded into smooth, unreadable grooves. But you don't need the name. You know this place. You've stood here before, or maybe you built it. A small Jizo statue sits at the centre, surrounded by hundreds of pebbles, some still wet from fresh hands placing them there. You kneel automatically. There's no fear, no confusion, just a soft ache blooming in your chest like steam rising after rain. Someone walks out of the trees. You don't look up right away, you feel them. Familiar. Not ancient, not divine, just someone you were meant to meet again. When you do lift your head, your heart doesn't pound. It slows, it quiets. She stands before you. The girl, but not a child anymore. Older. Maybe your age now, or maybe you've simply met her on equal footing this time. She doesn't speak. You don't need her to. She kneels across from you and places a pebble at the statue's feet. You do the same. The earth doesn't shake, the shrine doesn't glow, the air doesn't split open to reveal any cosmic secret. Instead, she smiles. And you remember something so small it hurts. She liked dumplings with too much sauce, that's all, and it's everything. This is what reunion looks like when it happens beyond the rules. No grand declarations, no orchestra, just a quiet shared space and the knowledge that you both came back, found each other, completed the promise you made in the depths of the underworld. She reaches into her sleeve and pulls something out. A rice ball, wrapped in paper. She hands it to you. You hesitate. You remember the rule, don't eat the food of the dead, but she laughs. We're not in Yomi anymore. You bite. It's warm, simple, real. And it fills you with something you didn't realize was missing. Presence. You eat together in silence, and when you're finished, she stands. We have more to do, she says. You rise too. And for the first time since you returned to this world, you feel it fully. You're not here to heal from what you saw, you're here to build from it, you and her, together. She starts walking toward the path, not back the way you came, forward. You follow. The shrine remains behind you, quiet and untouched. But now the forest feels like it's watching with approval. This isn't just another glimpse into the thin places between worlds. This is your first step as someone who walks between them. A psychopomp, in the quietest sense. No title, no robe, just a soul who remembers enough to guide. As you walk side by side, you ask her softly, "Where are we going?" She shrugs. "Wherever someone needs help getting home." You smile, because now you understand Yomi is not a place you leave behind. It's a place you learn to walk with. And not everyone makes it back, but some do. And when they do, someone has to meet them at the gate. The path ahead is narrow and winding, the sort of trail that seems to form as you walk it, built by intention more than geography. Trees part just enough to let you pass, the roots dipping into the soil like folded fingers, ancient and unmoving. You and she, no name needed anymore, walk side by side without conversation, and yet the silence doesn't feel empty. It feels collaborative, like you're both listening to something older than language, and in a way you are. The forest isn't just a place anymore, it's a feeling, a network of memory, growing thicker with each step. This is not a physical place marked on any map. It's what happens when a soul walks between realms with open eyes and unfinished business. The trail doesn't lead you to some glowing doorway or forgotten shrine. It leads you to them, the lost ones. You find the first near the bend of a dried-up creek bed. A boy, maybe 10, crouched in the dirt drawing spirals with a stick. His clothes are from another decade, maybe another century. He doesn't look up when you approach, doesn't flinch, just keeps drawing. You kneel beside him. "What are you looking for?" you ask softly. He answers without a stopping. "The last thing my mother touched. I think it was a comb." You nod, even though there's nothing to agree with. You glance at her, your companion. She watches the boy without blinking, then steps forward and pulls a small object from her sleeve. It's a wooden comb, old, worn, but real. She sets it on the ground next to him. The boy finally looks up. His fingers still, he touches the comb carefully, then sighs and fades. No smoke, no fanfare, just gone. As if he was never waiting for a destination, only acknowledgement. You stand and keep walking. This is how it goes now. A soul on a riverbank who can't stop crying because he died during Obon and missed his own offering. A woman sitting in a tree, convinced that if she lets go, her name will be erased from the temple records. An old man who hums to himself and sharpens non-existent knives, unaware he's passed. Some of them don't need much, just a name spoken aloud, a ritual remembered, a truth confirmed. Others need more, a story rewritten, a lie undone, a shrine rebuilt from words alone, and you do it. Because that's what you are now, not a priest, not a saviour, just a witness. And witnessing, it turns out, is sacred. One evening you arrive at a crossroads that wasn't there the day before. It cuts through the forest like a wound. One path dark and covered in moss, another paved in glowing stones. She pauses, looks down both roads, then at you. Do you want to split up? The question catches you off guard. You've never thought of this as a partnership with an expiration date. But she smiles gently, the way people smile when they know something has run its course, not out of loss, but out of grace. There are too many, she says. If we wait for the path to come to us, we'll never reach them all. But you nod, you don't argue, because you know she's right. But the thought of walking without her, it aches. Till you smile back. You'll know how to find me? She raises an eyebrow, amused. We always do. And then she's gone, her path swallowed up by the shadows that somehow don't frighten you anymore. You walk the glowing path. It leads to a town you've never seen before. A strange hybrid of places. Rice fields on one side, city lights on the other. Both ancient and modern, bustling and still. You realise this isn't a real town. It's a psychic construct, made from the half-dreams of those who die confused. The ones who don't know they've crossed over. Who sit on trains expecting them to reach a next stop that never comes. Who wake up in unfamiliar hospitals and wait for a nurse that no longer exists. You walk among them, they don't see you at first. You're not glowing, you're not cloaked in mystery. You just look like you. But when you speak, when you place a hand gently on a shoulder or whisper the name of the person they last thought of, they begin to shift. It's not dramatic. A soft shimmer. A sigh. A thank you mouthed with no sound. Some of them smile. A few weep. One looks at you and simply says, I thought no one was coming. You squeeze their hand and whisper, I always was. It just took time. That night, in the centre of the dream town, you find a bench beneath a red-leaf tree. You sit. You're tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, the kind that comes from carrying too many stories, but it's a good tired. A sacred tired, and so you rest. Not sleep, not death, just pause. And as you rest, the wind carries the smell of incense and earth, and a faint song. Someone is placing a pebble somewhere, not for themselves, but for someone they lost. You close your eyes and smile, because you know exactly where that pebble will land, and who it will help. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. You wake, or maybe you shift, from your resting place on the bench beneath the red-leaf tree. The ground is littered with petals now, although the tree bears none, a seasonal paradox. You brush the flecks of colour from your lap, stretch and rise. No ache, no hunger, just motion. Your body remembers its purpose, even if it's no longer ruled by biology. You're not alive in the way others around you are. Not fully, but neither are you dead. You're in the middle of both. A ferry with no river. The dream town continues its quiet buzz. Lights blink in windows where no electricity flows. Bicycle bells chime without riders. Faint conversations drift from alleys where no mouths move. This place hums with the residue of almost. It's where people land when the end is too fast. Too strange, too accidental to make peace with. The realm of the nearly departed. The reluctant. You walk past a store that sells clocks, each one ticking in a different rhythm. None of them match your heartbeat. That would have unsettled you once. Now it's just a poetic footnote in a life you've long since stopped needing to explain. And then you feel her again. She's not near, but she's near enough. Your pace quickens, not because something's wrong, but because you sense a change approaching. Something bigger than just another soul to guide. A shift in the balance, a storm behind the veil. You arrive in an open courtyard. Moonlight washes everything in silver. A fountain trickles softly in the centre. The water impossibly clear, yes, but not reflective. It's not showing the sky above, it's showing the other side, the world of the living. Glimpses of houses, cities, hospital beds, people lighting incense and forgetting why it comforts them. She stands on the far side of the courtyard, her hands clasped behind her back, looking down into the fountain's surface. You approach slowly. I thought we were covering different paths, you say. She nods but doesn't turn. I followed a ripple. It led here. You glance into the water, and your stomach sinks. You see a woman in a hospital bed. Wires, a monitor, beeping, a face still but not at rest. The room full of silence that's just too clean. Coma, she says softly. She's in between. Her soul isn't sure where to go. You watch as shadows dance at the edges of the fountain's image. Not evil, but curious, opportunistic. There are things in the Yomi borderlands that like the vulnerable. Not demons, not exactly, just collectors. Things that feed not on fear, but forgetting. She's losing the tether, your companion says. If she slips too far, they'll guide her into the wrong place. You ask the obvious. What do we do? She finally turns to you, eyes steady. We go in. You blink. Into her Yomi? She nods once. She's not crossing the same river we did. She's building her own. There's no debate, no plan. You both step forward and leap into the fountain. There's no splash, only silence. You land in cold fog. This Yomi is different, personal, shaped by her fears, her regrets, her undone moments. It's dark here, not terrifying, just dim. Everything is filtered through a haze, like you're watching a memory film through frosted glass. You walk together down a hallway lined with picture frames. Each one is cracked or smudged, the images inside just slightly wrong, faces turned away, shadows too long, smiles unfinished. She left too many things unsaid, your companion says, trailing a finger along the wall. At the end of the hallway is a door, locked, but not with a key. It's locked with shame. You feel it before you touch the handle. A low hum of self-blame, the emotional equivalent of walking into a room and forgetting why you're there, but knowing it was important. This door leads to the centre of her, the place where she's hiding. You knock once, no answer. She knocks twice, still nothing. Then you both speak her name. The door opens. Inside is a room half lit. A version of the woman sits in a corner, arms wrapped around her knees, staring at a spot on the wall where paint has peeled into the shape of a bird. She doesn't see you, not yet. You kneel before her. It's not too late, you whisper. She blinks, then looks through you. They told me I missed my chance. They were wrong, your companion says gently. The woman shakes her head. I didn't say goodbye. I was angry. I ignored the call. He died before I could say sorry. You sit with her in the silence that follows, because this is the work. Not pulling, not dragging, just being there long enough for her to believe she still matters. After a while, she whispers, I don't want to forget him. You won't, you promise. She looks up, finally sees you, and says, Then I'm ready. The room dissolves. You're back at the fountain. She's gone. Not dead, not lost, just free. Back to her body. Or maybe forward. Either way, she's not yours to carry anymore. You turn to your companion. She's samling. And for the first time since Yomi, you see her tired. Deep tired. Not physical, soul tired. You both sit on the edge of the fountain. I think I'm done, she says softly. You don't argue. You understand she's helped enough. Now it's your turn to keep walking. She places something in your hand before she fades, an old pebble, worn smooth. You don't ask where it came from. You already know. When she's gone, the town dims again, the path calls, and you rise, pebble in hand, still between worlds, still listening. You walk alone now, not lonely, just alone. The difference is everything. Your footsteps make no sound in this in-between place. A world stitched together from prayer smoke, unfinished business, and memories that refuse to die properly. You've become a regular here, a quiet guardian in a realm that has no proper name in any language. But the spirits know you, the roads know you. Even the silence moves aside when you pass, like it recognizes your rhythm. The pebble still sits in your pocket, warm some days, cool on others. You don't always remember it's there, but when you reach for it, it's waiting. A soft reminder of her, of what you came through, of the promise you made under that skyless field back in the early layers of Yomi. You've lost count of how many souls you've helped since then. Some needed only a word. Some required rituals so old they had no written form, just breath and gesture, the language of ancient empathy. Others were stubborn, twisted by bitterness, hiding inside elaborate Yomi constructs of their own design. But even those eventually cracked under your quiet persistence. Not every wound wants to be healed, but nearly all want to be seen. Today's path is different for when there's a tension in the air, not quite fear, but a kind of pressure, like the dream around you is stretching too thin, pulling at the seams of your current form. You stop at a crossroads where the trees lean in too closely, and the shadows hold their breath. The road forks here, but not in the usual way. This time both paths are down, not metaphorically, literally. One descends into a spiral tunnel, stone walls slick with moisture, lined with small torches that don't flicker. The other drops like a chasm, sharp rocks, jagged echoes. This are the kind of place where sound goes to die. You should be able to tell which one is right, but you can't. So for the first time in a long time, you close your eyes and ask, not out loud, just inward, the way you used to before you knew how to shape ritual from instinct. You wait, and then very softly you hear a voice. Not hers, not your own, just a whisper, like wind through a forgotten temple gate. Go deeper. You step into the spiral tunnel and descend. Each step feels harder, not physically, spiritually. Jumno. You're not tired, but the weight is familiar. The way Yomi begins to press into your rib cage, make your thoughts echo against your bones. This isn't your Yomi. It belongs to someone else, someone clinging hard to their pain. You feel it with every step downward. And then you arrive. A single room, empty, except for a chair at its centre. In the chair, someone slumped forward, head in hands. You know them. You don't know how, but you do. They were once a teacher, or a parent, or maybe someone you failed in a life you no longer remember. They're sobbing, not loudly, but in that broken, soundless way that only happens when grief has passed language entirely. You kneel in front of them. They flinch at your presence, not in fear, in shame. I waited too long, they whisper. I didn't help them, I let it rot. You don't speak. You just reach out and place the pebble in their hand. They look at it like it weighs 1,000 lifetimes. And then, slowly, their fingers close around it. That's all it takes. Not forgiveness, just the chance of it. They look up at you, eyes wide, as if you've aged backward into someone they once loved. And for a moment, you might have. They vanish, not with light or wind, but with a sigh. You're left alone again, but the room doesn't feel empty anymore. You rise. There's no stairway back, only up. You climb. The stone beneath you turns to wood, then to grass, then to air. You blink, and you're back in the world of the living. It's quiet. You're standing in front of a shrine you don't remember walking to. The wind is warm. Cicadas buzz lazily in the trees overhead. A group of elderly women are sweeping the temple steps. One glances at you and smiles. Not recognition, just politeness. But something about her feels old. In the same way you feel old, you smile back, then turn and walk down the steps. The city stretches ahead of you. Modern, noisy, full of neon and noodle shops and vending machines that sell things no vending machine should. You pass a group of children playing janken by the curb. One of them stumbles and scrapes her knee. She starts to cry, but before you can react, another child kneels beside her, whispers something, and places a small stone in her palm. The crying stops. You don't smile, you just nod. Someone else is remembering now. You're not the only one walking between. You never were. The world is full of quiet bridges. You just happened to find yours early. Later, as the sun dips into the haze of twilight, you find yourself alone in a park. You sit on a bench beside a small stream. Fireflies begin to blink on. One lands on your knee, doesn't move. You whisper, "Thank you." Not to anyone in particular, just to the process. To Yomi, to the journey. You watch the firefly lift into the air and vanish. Tomorrow you'll return to your work, or waking or otherwise. Someone else will forget, someone else will need help, and maybe you'll show up in their dream wearing a face they almost remember. You'll offer them a pebble, maybe even a name, and if they're lucky, they'll wake up just in time. Gum.